Chapter 300. Judgment of Light. Defeat. Lan Yu let out a soft cry as a majestic light-based Daoist rhyme erupted and formed into a white spear in her palm. Runes flowed on the spear, and it emanated a majestic yet destructive aura. The spear shot out like a ray of light in the dark night. Li Yin could not dodge it at all and had to take the attack head-on. Boom! A terrifying explosion of energy. Li Yin's Black Emperor indestructible physique was already weakened by the light burn. Now that it was hit by the judgment of light, the pitch-black Daoist rhyme on his body instantly disintegrated. The Black Emperor indestructible physique was shattered. Li Yin was defeated. After defeating all 7 Sky Prides, Lan Yu could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Her face turned pale and she could not help but half kneel on the ground. Her aura that was initially powerful had also weakened. Obviously, this battle had taken a lot out of her. Although there were only 7 Sky Prides, there were 2 young emperors, Ling Huteng and Lei Mingtian, as well as one of the 10 heroes, Li Yin. The other 4 Sky Prides were also top-notch young experts in the world. These 7 people together were enough to kill an honorable supreme. Not to mention a veteran honorable supreme. The 5 orthodoxies have joined forces to deal with the Black Heaven sect. Murong Xian and the others must be targeted too. I need to find them as soon as possible. Lan Yu thought to herself. She took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it. An incredibly rich medicinal strength instantly erupted and turned into surging spiritual power that was injected into her already dried-up spiritual mound. With the help of the medicinal pill, Lan Yu's complexion looked much better. She did not bother to adjust her breathing as she slowly converted her spiritual power and left the scene. In the skybox of the battle arena, the Linghu clan head, the Thunder Falcon tribe leader, and the others were dumbfounded. Cheating! Cheating! Lan Yu is cheating! The Linghu clan head yelled. Watch your mouth. How is she cheating? Chu Kuangren said coldly. Lan Yu used a medicinal pill. Isn't that cheating? The rules didn't state that we can't use medicinal pills. You guys can use them too, Chu Kuangren said calmly. Where do we have that kind of pill? A pill that can instantly restore a venerable's spiritual power. Only an alchemy grandmaster can refine this kind of pill. Patriarch Linghu said in a deep voice. As an important cultivation resource, elixirs did indeed have a variety of uses. However, most elixirs required a refining process. The battlefield was ever-changing, so how could one use elixirs to recover? Just like the pill that Lan Yu had used, one pill was able to replenish more than half of her spiritual power. This kind of pill was simply too rare. At the critical juncture of life and death, it could be a life. Oh, you don't allow others to use it because you don't have it? Chu Kuangren sneered. You. Patriarch Linghu was rendered speechless. Rumor has it that Chu Kuangren is an alchemy grandmaster. It's very likely that he refined these pills for Lan Yu and the others. No wonder he's always been so fearless. It turns out that he has this trump card up his sleeves. The eyes of the Sky Emperor Palace Master and the Overlord Body Tribe leader sank down. A pill-cultivating grandmaster was way too important for an orthodoxy. Deep down, they felt it was inconceivable. Chu Kuangren was so young, yet not only was his combat strength strong enough to kill a sage, but he was also an alchemy grandmaster. Was he still human? Inside the Blood Moon ancient town, Lan Yu was currently looking for Murong Xian and the others. Soon, she heard the fluctuations of battle coming from not far away. She saw Murong Xian and Nangong Huang in a bitter battle. Surrounded by 10 Sky Prides, their bodies were riddled with wounds. Without another word, she joined the battle. Although her spiritual power had not fully recovered after being replenished by the elixirs, it was at least 50 to 60%. Her vast light-based Daoist rhyme instantly erupted and blasted one of the Sky Prides away. At that moment, not far away, a red and blue sword ray intertwined and swept towards another sky prides, sending them flying as well. It was Jun Yi and Jin Fian. The 5 sky prides of the Black Heaven sect had all gathered. The 5 of them stood together. Even though they were riddled with wounds, their eyes were fearless as they looked at the surrounding sky prides who were attacking them. No one can stop the Black Heaven sect. Even if all 5 orthodoxies join forces, what's there to be afraid of? Murong Xian laughed as the spiritual power on his body surged and turned into 7 fireballs that floated in midair like the sun. Come and fight. With a loud shout, the 7 fireballs shot out one after another. Nangong Huang was not to be outdone either. His eyes glowed with divine yin-yang light as he injected sword qi into his eyes, forcing 2 sky prides to retreat. Divine rain of light. Watch out for my sword formation. The divine light energy and the ever-changing water and fire yin-yang sword formation exploded at the same time, sweeping across the entire battlefield. The battle strength of the 5 from the Black Heaven sect shocked the entire audience in the arena. Everyone held their breaths as they watched the battle. Time passed. In less than half an hour. Blood Moon ancient towns, under the blood-colored moonlight. Lan Yu, Murong Xian, Nangong Huang, Jun Yi, and Jin Fian were riddled with wounds, but they still stood tall. The murderous aura around their bodies was breathtaking as if they were 5 invincible gods of war. Around the 5 of them, the sky prides from the other 5 orthodoxies were already lying on the ground, moaning in pain. The Black Heaven sect had won a 1 versus 5 battle. In the arena, when the spectators saw this scene and looked at the 5 people who were standing tall, they only felt their hearts surging, and it was difficult for them to control themselves. When the 5 of them walked out of the Blood Moon ancient towns and were transported back to the Blood Moon ancient towns, the entire arena erupted in cheers. Black Heaven sect. Black Heaven sect. Black Heaven sect. At this moment, even though Lan Yu and the others were injured, they were still dazzling in the eyes of the audience. This was the respect and yearning for the strong. Faced with the cheers of the audience, Lan Yu looked fine. Apart from looking a little tired, there were no obvious emotional changes. The others were different. They opened their arms and enjoyed the cheers of the audience, accepting the glory that belonged to them. Especially Jin Fian, who was waving and blowing kisses to the audience. She was extremely excited. At this moment, the 12th prefect slowly stood up and gulped. He said with a trembling voice, Group Delta's 4th round has ended. The winner is Black Heaven sect. A total of 250 points. 250 points. This represented the 25 sky prides who lost to Lan Yu and the others. This was the highest number of points that could be obtained in the 4th round. Other than the Black Heaven sect, no one else could achieve this. This was because no other orthodoxy could force the other 5 orthodoxies to team up against them like the Black Heaven sect did. 250 points, plus the previous 235 points, that's a total of 485 points. This far exceeds the points of the other orthodoxies. The champion will definitely be the Black Heaven sect. That's right, the Black Heaven sect is invincible. This is amazing. I didn't expect such a dark horse to appear in this championship. They've left everyone else in the dust. With Chu Kuangren and these Daoists in the Black Heaven sect, I can't imagine how strong the Black Heaven sect will be in the future. Chapter 301. In the 4th segment, the 5 representatives of the Black Heaven sect had defeated all 5 orthodoxies. That feat had caused a huge uproar among the audience. While everyone was chanting the Black Heaven sect's name, Chu Kuangren went up to them and cast the spring breeze healing technique on them without saying a word. The gentle spring breeze quickly healed the injuries on their bodies. Very soon, their exhausted bodies were as good as new. This technique made everyone's heart palpitate. They did not know how many more tricks Chu Kuangren had hidden up his sleeves. The person before them was just too unpredictable. Now, would you like to sign an IOU? Chu Kuangren looked at the Linghu clan head and the others. Jun Yi's eyes lit up when she heard that. Sect leader, did you make another bet with them? That's right. The Linghu clan head and the others were too enthusiastic. They fought to give me soul stones, so I had no choice but to accept them. Chu Kuangren laughed. Everyone was so angry that their lungs were about to explode. However, they could not do anything about it. How much did you win this time? Jun Yi asked expectantly. Let me see. The Linghu clan head and I bet 100 million, the Sky Palace Lord 500 million, the Thunder Falcon tribe 300 million, and the Overlord Sage tribe 300 million. That's a total of 1.2 billion top-tier soul stones, Chu Kuangren said with a smile. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard that. The previous 4.5 billion and the current 1.2 billion would add up to 5.7 billion top-tier soul stones. Even for a sage orthodoxy, that was a terrifying number. 5.7 billion top-tier soul stones. I'm afraid the total value of all the prizes in the championship is only 200 to 300 million top-tier soul stones. Sect leader, you've won 5.7 billion in one bet. That's terrifying. Nangong Huang gulped and said. In the history of the Black Heaven sect, no sect leader had ever achieved such a feat. Not only is the sect leader the youngest in the history of the Black Heaven sect, but he's also the best at making money. That's amazing. Jun Yi was amazed and her eyes were filled with admiration. Then, the Linghu clan head and the others signed another IOU under Chu Kuangren's domineering aura. This time, not only them, but even the sages behind them were trembling in pain. Everyone, if you want to bet again, feel free to look for me. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Everyone almost vomited blood when they heard that. Next time? Just these 2 times had already greatly damaged their vitality. If there was a third time, they would probably have to pay for the loss of their orthodoxy's base. Everyone, the group stage is over. Next up will be the semi-finals, which will be held in 2 days. The 4 orthodoxies participating in the semi-finals are the Overlord Sage Tribe from Group A, the Tempest Mountain from Group B, the Sky Emperor Palace from Group C, and the Black Heaven Sect from Group D. The 12th prefect's voice came from the judge's booth. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren chuckled and said, "This is bad. It seems like these 3 orthodoxies are not very friendly towards our Black Heaven sect. Don't tell me they're going to join forces against us again? How scary." Although he said that, there was not the slightest hint of fear on his face. Or rather, it was mockery. Indeed, the Overlord Sage Tribe, Sky Emperor Palace, and Tempest Mountain did not have a good relationship with the Black Heaven sect. Tempest Mountain was one of the best sword orthodoxies in Firmament Star, so there was no lack of friction between them. Chu Kuangren had forced the Overlord Sage Tribe's Greygrill Sage to sever his own arm, and the young Emperor Chang Tian was even taught a lesson by Chu Kuangren in front of everyone. As for the Sky Emperor Palace, they did not have a grudge against them. However, after 2 bets, even if they did not have a grudge against them, they would be forced to do so. The other orthodoxies had lost 1 or 200 million soul stones, but the Sky Emperor Palace had lost 1.5 billion soul stones and 2 sage weapons. On top of that, all of their cultivation techniques were unconditionally available to Chu Kuangren. However, who could they blame for that? It was their fault for coveting the godly phoenix. Chu Kuangren, I'll see you in the semi-finals. The Overlord Sage Tribe leader snorted before he turned around and left. The Tempest Mountain sect leader and the Sky Emperor Palace Lord also gave Chu Kuangren a meaningful look before they left with their respective sky prides. The championship entered the preparation stage of the semi-finals. The names of the 4 orthodoxies that were participating in the semi-finals had also spread throughout the first city, especially the Black Heaven sect, who was known by everyone. Currently, in the streets and alleys of the first city, cultivators of all sizes were discussing the Black Heaven sect's impressive performance in the championship. Lan Yu, Nangong Huang, and the other names were even more well known. On this day, Lan Yu came out of her cultivation state. She sensed the power within her body and murmured, "I can't believe that the continuous battles have pushed me to the threshold of a late-stage honorable." At this point, she was only one step away from becoming a late-stage honorable. After that, she would be able to become an honorable. With her talent and Chu Kuangren's years of training, she would probably be able to compete with a boundary sage once she became an honorable. Except for Lan Yu. Nangong Huang and the others had more or less gained some benefits from their battles with the other Sky Prides. Other things aside, their Daoist core alone was enough to keep them in a state of vigorous improvement in their cultivation from now on. 2 days passed. Soon, it was over. The familiar entrance, the familiar cheers. After 2 days, Chu Kuangren and the others returned to the arena. Sect leader, look, the 13th prefect is back. At that moment, Junie pointed at the judge's booth and said. Chu Kuangren looked over. At the judge's booth, the 13th prefect, who had left in anger after losing 100 million soul stones to Chu Kuangren, was once again sitting at the judge's booth. Ignore him, Chu Kuangren said. All right. Chu Kuangren looked around him again. He realized that other than the orthodoxies who were participating in the semi-finals, the other orthodoxies were there too. They probably wanted to watch the entire championship before leaving. At the judge's booth, the 13th prefect stood up and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the semi-finals of the Sky Pride Championship. Before the semi-finals begin, I'd like to clarify a few things. Based on the discussions between us and the judges over the past 2 days, we've added 2 more points to the original rules. First, the point system will be abolished. The winner will no longer be determined by the number of points earned. From now on, all orthodoxies' points will be invalid." At that, the audience was in an uproar. Everyone could tell who this rule was aimed at. It was the Black Heaven sect, which had the highest points among the orthodoxies. F*ck me, what kind of rule is this? They worked so hard to earn their points, why should it be abolished? This is so unfair. Sigh, the organizers can't do anything about it. Who would have thought that the Black Heaven sect could earn so many points? If they don't abolish this rule, there's no way to compete at all. They could have just given the championship to the Black Heaven sect. That's true. The Overlord Sage Tribe, Tempest Mountain, and Sky Emperor Palace had no objections to the abolition of the point system. In fact, they were all in favor of it. Otherwise, they would not be able to compete with the Black Heaven sect in terms of points. It's fine to abolish the point system. I think it's meaningless to win too easily anyway. However, if you just abolish the points we worked so hard for, it'll be hard to explain without some compensation, right? Chu Kuangren said to the 13th prefect. Of course. As compensation, the Black Heaven sect with the highest points will have the right to choose their opponent in the semi-finals, the 13th prefect said. In other words, I can choose any orthodoxy to be my opponent, right? That's right. This compensation is as good as nothing. Chu Kuangren sneered before he swept his gaze across the 3 orthodoxies of the Overlord Sage Tribe. Let's pick the Overlord Sage Tribe then. Chu Kuangren did not have any intention to target them. He just randomly picked one. Chapter 302. Oh, just as well. My Overlord Sage Tribe will not let you get past the semi-finals, the Overlord Sage Tribe leader said after glancing at Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren yawned. I've heard too many harsh words. It's better for you to prove your strength with your actions. There's one more thing. At this moment, the 13th prefect continued, for the sake of fairness, all medicinal pills are prohibited in this competition. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren's gaze turned cold. First, you're going to abolish the point system, then you're going to ban the use of medicinal pills. Do you want my Black Heaven sect disciples to tie up their hands and feet to compete with you? Please don't be angry, sect leader Chu. This is all for the sake of fairness in the competition. After all, the Black Heaven sect's pills are really against the rules for the other participants, the 13th prefect said calmly. Sect leader, even without the pills, we can still win this competition. Just you wait, Murong Xian said with determination. That's right. There's no meaning in winning too easily. Nangong Huang added. They had long decided to bring the champion of the championship back to the Black Heaven sect as a token of gratitude to Chu Kuangren. Therefore, no matter what difficulties they encountered, they would not retreat. Chu Kuangren took a deep breath, glanced at the 13th prefect, and said, "You guys are the judges. Whatever you say goes." He chose to respect the decisions of Nangong Huang and the rest. If there are no objections, then let the competition begin. This semi-final will be a best-of-3 system. Each side will send out 3 people, and whoever wins 2 matches first will advance to the finals. The 13th prefect said. The rules of the competition were very simple. Very soon, the semi-finals began. Sect leader, let me go first. Nangong Huang twisted his neck and said eagerly. All right. Chu Kuangren agreed. On the arena, Nangong Huang's opponent was the Overlord Sage tribe's bachelor sage. Chu Kuangren was quite familiar with that person. It was the Holy Sun Chong Yuan whom he had met on the street that day. The eye of revelation opened. Chu Kuangren analyzed the strength of both sides. Yo, Nangong Huang's winning rate is as high as 80%. He smiled. It seemed that this so-called Holy Sun Chong Yuan was also a rookie. Come. Nangong Huang took out his longsword and hooked his finger at Holy Sun Chong Yuan. Humph, arrogant. Holy Sun Chong Yuan roared, and a black violent airflow suddenly burst out from the surface of his body. This was the Overlord physique unique to the Overlord physique clan. The Overlord physique was one of the 3,000 physiques. Although it was not comparable to the top-notch Daoist physique, the probability of it appearing in the Overlord Sage tribe was very high. Almost every Skypride could obtain the Overlord physique. This was a very terrifying thing, and it was also the main reason why the Overlord Sage tribe could dominate the Black Warrior domain. Brilliant heaven-shaking fist. Holy Sun Chong Yuan knew that Nangong Huang's strength was extraordinary, so he immediately used one of the most powerful sage techniques in his clan. He threw a punch, and the violent strength chi formed a torrent, wrapped in Daoist rhymes, wind and sand, like a black tornado, blasted towards Nangong Huang. In the face of such a powerful attack, Nangong Huang did not panic. Instead, Yin-Yang divine light circulated in his eyes. The power of the Yin-Yang God Eye was activated. Yin-Yang divine light, ocean wave sword art. A surge of Yin-Yang divine light and endless Daoist rhymes merged with his sword chi, and the surging sword chi gushed out like a tide. In the face of such power, Holy Sun Chong Yuan's sage technique was obviously inferior. At the moment of impact, his fist force could not advance any further. Instead, it was continuously pushed back by the impact of the sword chi. How is this possible? Holy Sun Chong Yuan's expression changed drastically. However, after the power of the sword chi broke through the fist force, it was already right in front of him. He quickly activated the Overlord physique's ability, and spiritual energy mixed with the unique black aura of the Overlord physique formed a black-golden barrier in front of him. Boom, boom, boom. The sword chi kept hitting the barrier. The barrier let out a cracking sound, and in less than 2 breaths' time, cracks appeared on it before it finally shattered. Holy Sun Chong Yuan was blasted back dozens of feet by the impact of the sword chi. Although he was not seriously injured, he was still in a rather sorry state. More importantly, Nangong Huang followed up with another attack. Even though he had the upper hand, he did not hold back and used all his strength. There was already a gap between their cultivation levels. In addition, Nangong Huang had read about Holy Sun Chong Yuan before, so he knew his opponent's moves and weaknesses like the back of his hand. There was almost no suspense in this battle. Bang! With a slash of the sword, Holy Sun Chang Yuan was blasted away and smashed into the wall of the arena. Even though he had the overlord physique and had a strong physical body, he was already riddled with scars from Nan Gong Huang's continuous attacks. He fell to the ground and tried to prop himself up, but in the end, he could only lie on the ground unwillingly and could no longer stand up. Nan Gong Huang had won this battle. Damn it! The overlord tribe leader was so angry that he punched the wall of the spectator stand. More than half of the wall of the spectator stand was directly smashed by him. He said with a gloomy expression, "How could this be? Chang Yuan's strength is second only to Chang Tian. How could he be defeated so quickly? That Nan Gong Huang seems to have seen through Chang Yuan's moves. What's going on?" The overlord sage tribe's various cultivation techniques were all kept secret, and Chang Yuan cultivated the most top-notch sage technique in the tribe. Even in the overlord sage tribe, not many people knew that technique. How did Nan Gong Huang know his opponent's moves and weaknesses? This Black Heaven sect is just too strange. The sect leaders and sky prides of the orthodoxies could not help but mutter. They had also noticed the strangeness of this battle, and when they thought about how Chu Kuangren could easily see through Li Yin's flaws, a ridiculous thought suddenly popped into their minds. Could it be that Chu Kuangren could see through their cultivation techniques and flaws? Wasn't this ability a little too overpowered? The crowd shook their heads and quickly threw that ridiculous thought to the back of their minds. However, they were even more afraid of Chu Kuangren now. The semi-finals continued. Due to Chang Yuan's defeat, the overlord sage tribe would not be able to advance to the finals if they lost another round. Hence, they immediately sent out their strongest cultivator, Chang Tian. Looking at young Emperor Chang Tian in the arena, Lan Yu, who was beside Chu Kuangren, had a stern look in her eyes. "Master, let me fight this round." "All right." Chu Kuangren nodded. Lan Yu leaped down from the skybox, and with a flash of white light, a gorgeous silver-white armor had already covered her body. An incredibly cold holy aura emanated and turned into a majestic domineering aura that crushed towards Chang Tian. "Humph, young Emperor Lan Yu, I've always wanted to fight you." Chang Tian snorted coldly as a purple palm chi circled around his body. An overbearing Daoist rhyme emanated and fought against Lan Yu's domineering aura. It was the overlord sage tribe's rare purple-blooded overlord physique, which was also one of the top 30 supreme Daoist physiques among the 3,000 physiques. "Let's fight." Without another word, Chang Tian attacked with all his might. Purple sword chi condensed on his fist and a peerlessly domineering Daoist rhyme filled the air. As he threw a punch, a purple fist seal appeared out of thin air and charged towards Lan Yu with an unstoppable force. Lan Yu remained calm in the face of that attack. She gently tapped the scepter in her hand on the ground, and a white barrier appeared. Chapter 303. Boom! Chang Tian's fist energy landed on the white barrier in front of Lan Yu. With a loud bang, Lan Yu was sent flying hundreds of feet away. The violent shockwave swept in all directions, stirring up a cloud of dust and obscuring everyone's vision. Chang Tian smirked. "Even an honorable supreme wouldn't feel good after taking my attack. This is the power of the purple-blooded overlord body. Lan Yu, you're going to lose this battle for sure. I'm the strongest young emperor in the world." Everyone was shocked by Chang Tian's combat strength. They did not expect Lan Yu, who had been so strong all this while, to be sent flying by a single punch. As expected of the strongest young emperor. Impressive. Yeah, Chang Tian's performance in the championship was also very dazzling. He has never lost a single battle, so he might really be stronger than Lan Yu. As the crowd discussed among themselves, the dust settled. Lan Yu stood there, patted the dust off her armor, and said calmly, "The strongest young emperor in the world? You can't even take a single slap from Master, yet you dare to spout nonsense here. Where do you get your confidence from? Although Chang Tian had shattered the white barrier with a single punch, she was unscathed. Her armor was still shiny and beautiful. Hearing Lan Yu's words, Chang Tian's face turned extremely gloomy. The purple energy around his body began to stir, and a violent Daoist rhyme spread out with him as the center. Provoking me will only make your defeat worse. Chang Tian growled and continued to attack. One punch after another, each punch was ferocious and domineering. They were all top-notch sage techniques of the Overlord Sage tribe. Divine Rain of Light. Lan Yu held her scepter and unleashed her light-based Daoist rhyme. A huge white ball of light formed and shot out beams of light that resembled raindrops, colliding with Chang Tian's fist energy. The void was disturbed by the two forces, causing it to tremble. After the first round of attacks, just as Chang Tian was about to charge for the second round of attacks, Lan Yu stomped on the ground and shot out like a cannonball. She raised her scepter and smashed it down. Trying to fight me in close combat? Fool! Chang Tian's charge-up was interrupted, but he did not panic. He took a step back and dodged Lan Yu's attack, which was using the scepter as a club. The scepter smashed into the ground, and the violent force instantly caused the ground to cave in. A large amount of soil and rocks were mixed with the strong wind and splashed out. Chang Tian's vision was obscured by the rocks. He then felt a sharp pain in his abdomen before he was sent flying uncontrollably. Who did you say was stupid? Lan Yu looked at the sky and said calmly. The winged humans were brave and good at fighting. Every single one of them was a natural-born warrior, and Lan Yu was one of the best. Although the Overlord tribe was also good at fighting, Chang Tian was still a level lower than Lan Yu when it came to fighting skills alone. Damn it! Chang Tian gritted his teeth. Although he had the Overlord body and Lan Yu's attack did not deal much damage to him, it had still embarrassed him. The spiritual energy in his body surged and the purple chi force exploded, turning into a giant palm that descended from the sky towards Lan Yu. Firmament God Palm. Lan Yu was locked on by the palm's Daoist rhyme, so she could not dodge it. She raised the scepter in her hand to the sky, and a majestic light-based Daoist rhyme exploded, blocking the palm attack. Brilliant heaven-shaking fist. Chang Tian's Daoist rhyme exploded again as he threw a punch. Lan Yu held the scepter in one hand to block the palm attack, and with the other, she gathered the spiritual energy in her body and turned it into a white fireball to block the fist force. Several bursts of energy exploded at the same time, and the entire arena shook violently as a violent energy storm filled the void. The battle between Lan Yu and Chang Tian was still going on. Both of them could be said to be the strongest young emperors in the world. They both possessed the primordial emperor's essence and supreme Daoist physique. Their battle was so intense that it was as if two top-notch honorable supremes were fighting each other. Every move they made and every technique they used had the power to shake mountains and rivers, and it was extremely terrifying. Everyone's eyes were glued to this battle. Sand and rocks were swirling in the wind, and the void was shaking. The vast holy Daoist rhyme and the violent Overlord body's Daoist rhyme clashed fiercely. I'm the strongest young emperor. You shall be defeated. Chang Tian roared as he threw a punch. He had pushed his purple-blooded Overlord body to its limit, and rays of purple energy surrounded his body to form a gigantic palm that pushed forward. The palm seemed to hold the mountains, rivers, the sun, and the moon, and it was extremely terrifying. Purple-blooded Overlord body's transformation, Heaven's Grasp. Lan Yu's body emitted an endless divine radiance as she faced the Daoist physique transformation before her. She also activated her Daoist physique transformation to fight against it. The endless radiance and the gigantic palm collided, and a loud explosion erupted. The collision of the two Daoist transformations formed a storm that spread out, and the spectators felt as if they were about to be blown away. What a powerful force! Is this the scene of a battle between supreme Daoist physiques? In the spectator stands, the Sky Prides had their eyes glued to the battle. In the Sky Emperor Palace's direction. Sky Pride Chang Ao watched the battle with a serious expression. No matter who these two are, their combat strength is no weaker than mine. They are formidable opponents. At the Black Heaven Sect. Sect leader, Lan Yu looks like she's having a hard time. Murong Xian said with a frown. Don't worry. Lan Yu will definitely win this battle. Mysterious Daoist runes flickered in the depths of Chu Kuangren's eyes as he quickly analyzed Lan Yu's chances of winning this battle. 71%. Lan Yu had more than a 70% chance of winning this battle. Moreover, Lan Yu had already figured out Chang Tian's weakness. This battle was settled. Judgment of Light. Lan Yu grabbed the void with her bare hands, and a large amount of light gathered in her palm, forming a dazzling divine spear. The divine spear shot out. It streaked across the sky and headed straight for Chang Tian. Brilliant heaven-shaking fist. Chang Tian pushed his purple-blooded overlord body to its limit and unleashed a punch. An extremely violent aura gushed out like a torrent and turned into a giant fist. Under the enhancement of the transformations, both of their combat strengths were greatly boosted. They were extremely terrifying and powerful. The divine spear and the fist followed one after another, and their chi surged out like a hurricane. White and purple chi surged out in all directions. With a cracking sound, a crack appeared on the huge fist seal. The crack expanded and gradually covered the entire fist seal. Then, the white divine spear pierced through the fist and into Chang Tian's chest. The huge force sent him flying and pinned him onto the wall of the arena. The crowd could not help but gasp. F***ck me. That hurts. This move is too cruel. Chang Tian could not help but roar as he was pinned to the wall by the divine spear. Ah, Lan Yu, I'm going to kill you. Chang Tian had awakened his purple-blooded overlord body at birth and had experienced thousands of battles. However, he had never been in such a sorry state, pinned to the wall in front of millions of spectators. Even Chu Kuangren had not done this before. He tried his best to pull the divine spear out, but the light-based Daoist rime on it was destroying his meridians and body, making it difficult for him to channel his spiritual power. No matter what he did, he could not move the divine spear at all. The strongest young emperor? What a joke! Lan Yu walked up to Chang Tian and said. Chapter 304. We admit defeat in this battle. Seeing that Chang Tian was pinned to the wall and that his life would be in danger if he was not treated in time, the Overlord tribe leader could no longer sit still. The competition could be lost, but the heavens could not die. That was the only supreme Daoist physique in the Overlord Sage tribe. The Overlord tribe leader appeared in the arena with a whoosh. He pulled the divine spear out of Chang Tian's body and glared at Lan Yu. Lan Yu was fearless. Given her current battle prowess, even a veteran honorable supreme like the Overlord tribe leader might not be able to defeat her if quasi-sages and sages did not make a move. Winner, Lan Yu from Black Heaven Sect. The 13th prefect said. Black Heaven Sect had advanced to the finals. Before this, the Black Heaven Sect had never been defeated. Their dazzling results shocked everyone in the audience. Next was the semi-finals between Sky Emperor Palace and Tempest Mountain. Chu Kuangren and the others watched for a while. In the end, the Sky Emperor Palace was the winner of this match. It's confirmed, our final opponent is the Sky Emperor Palace. Chu Kuangren chuckled. He looked in the direction of the Sky Emperor Palace Lord and saw the cold look in his eyes. Black Heaven Sect, I'm looking forward to the finals tomorrow. I think the results will disappoint you. Looks like you guys have victory in your hands. To be honest, I really don't think that the Sky Emperor Palace's geniuses can defeat us. Chu Kuangren glanced at the Sky Prides in the opposing camp. Their overall strength was about the same as the Overlord Sage tribe. The Black Heaven Sect had a very high chance of winning. Then let's wait and see. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord snorted lightly and left. That night, in the sky above First City, there was a lake on a floating island. There was a pavilion in the middle of the lake. A middle-aged man dressed in black sat in the pavilion with an indifferent expression. In front of him were drinks and snacks, as if he was waiting for someone. After a while, ripples appeared in the void. A man slowly walked over, stepping on the moonlight. The man's face was tough and his every move exuded a sense of nobility. Heavenly King Jianghu of the Sky Emperor Palace. I wonder what business you have with me? The black-robed man within the pavilion smiled faintly. Heavenly King was an honorific title for saints in the Sky Emperor Palace. Heavenly King Jianghu was the sage of the Sky Emperor Palace. As for the others, they generally referred to him as Heavenly King Sage Jianghu. Third Prefect, you should be aware of the progress of the championship. The 11th Prefect and the others are in charge of this matter. It has nothing to do with me. The man in black, who was the 3rd Prefect, smiled faintly. You're the first city saint and you're ranked 3rd among the 13 prefects. You hold an esteemed position, and while the 1st Prefect is in closed-door cultivation and the 2nd Prefect isn't around, you're in charge of the 1st city. You're much more useful than the 13 prefects, said Heavenly Emperor Jianghu. Sit. The 3rd Prefect gestured with his hand. Heavenly Emperor Sage Jianghu sat in front of him and said indifferently, I'm here today for one thing only. My Heavenly Emperor Palace has to win. The Sky Emperor Palace's opponent is the Black Heaven sect, right? Those few brats are indeed extraordinary. It won't be easy for the Sky Emperor Palace to win, but isn't it normal to win and lose in a competition? I said, the Sky Emperor Palace wants to win. Heavenly King Sage Jianghu said resolutely. So you're asking me to cheat for you? This will damage the 1st city's reputation, said the 3rd Prefect. As far as I know, the 3rd Prefect isn't someone who values reputation. As long as there's profit to be had. This was also the reason why Heavenly Emperor Sage Jianghu came looking for the 3rd Prefect. If the 1st city was in the hands of the 2nd Prefect or the 1st Prefect, he would not have come. Unfortunately, the 1st Prefect was in closed-door cultivation and the 2nd Prefect was out traveling. The 1st city was now in the hands of the 3rd Prefect. What kind of profit? I heard that the 3rd Prefect has been searching for the ethereal rapture all these years. You know clues about the ethereal rapture? The 3rd Prefect's eyes lit up. Indeed. The ethereal rapture is one of the unknown lands. Not many people know its exact location. How did the Sky Emperor Palace find out? Although the unknown lands are hidden from the world, they're not completely cut off from the outside world. Every once in a while, the unknown lands will send their young disciples out into the world. The world calls them Empyrean Walkers. According to the ancient records, one of the ancestors of the Sky Emperor Palace was fortunate enough to be acquainted with an Empyrean Walker from the ethereal rapture. He even told the Sky Emperor Palace the exact location of the ethereal rapture. Heavenly Emperor Sage Jianghu said slowly. The 3rd Prefect could not help but fall into deep thought after listening to him. He was tempted. For some reason, he had been searching for the ethereal rapture all these years. However, as an unknown land, even a sage like him could not find it that easily. He had not found anything even after so long. Now that the clues about the ethereal rapture were right in front of him, it was impossible for him not to be tempted. I'll find a way for the Sky Emperor Palace to win tomorrow's competition. I hope Sage Jianghu can tell me how to get to the ethereal rapture. Of course, but I'm a little curious. Why are you so obsessed with the ethereal rapture, 3rd Prefect? Heavenly Emperor Sage Jianghu asked. That's my personal matter, so I won't tell you, Sage Jianghu. However, I didn't expect the Black Heaven sect to put so much pressure on the Sky Emperor Palace that Sage Jianghu would come looking for me, the 3rd Prefect said. Chu Kuangren has won 5 billion top-tier soul stones and 2 sage weapons from the Sky Emperor Palace. On top of that, the Sky Emperor Palace wants to open up all of our cultivation techniques to him. Do you think I can take this lying down? Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang said coldly. As if sensing the third prefect's emotions, ripples began to form on the surface of the lake. One by one, the fishes could not withstand the sage's aura, so they died and floated to the surface. Chu Kuangren is indeed terrifying. In the past 150,000 years, it's hard to find another sky pride that can be mentioned in the same breath as him. At the mention of Chu Kuangren, even a sage like the third prefect could not help but exclaim. To be honest, if the Sky Emperor Palace had not offered the clues about the ethereal rapture in exchange, he would not want to offend Chu Kuangren. The next day. The final match of the championship. Countless people were looking forward to the match between the Black Heaven sect and the Sky Emperor Palace. Wow, there's a lot more spectators than a few days ago. When Chu Kuangren and the others walked into the arena, they could not help but exclaim. At this time, the arena was packed with people. The number of people had increased by a large margin compared to when they first arrived. It was obvious that everyone was very interested in the final match. Some of the people who had not watched the first few rounds of the championship came to watch. Everyone, let's cut to the chase. Let's begin the final round of the championship. It's still the best of 3. However, the venue this time will be the Thousand Mammoth Secret Realm. The 13th prefect waved his hand, and a circle of light and dozens of light screens suddenly appeared on the arena. Some of the light screens were of deserts, some were caves, and some were even murky swamps. The Thousand Mammoth Secret Realm is divided into dozens of different scenes. The contestants will be sent to these scenes to fight until one side admits defeat or is unable to fight anymore. The final winner will be the champion of this championship. All the prizes sponsored by the Sage Orthodoxies will be won by the winner. Now, let the competition begin. Chapter 305. Why did they have to use such a huge arena instead of the 10,000 Secret Realm? What the hell are they trying to do? Chu Kuangren frowned. Chu Kuangren, it's already a miracle that the Black Heaven sect managed to come this far. However, we shall be the champion today. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord said to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren glanced at him. The Overlord Sage tribe leader said the same thing before, but his young emperor ended up pinned to the wall. Let's wait and see then. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord was not angry. He smiled faintly, looking as if victory was already in his grasp, as if he had something to rely on. I think there's something fishy about this finals. Chu Kuangren rubbed his chin as he scanned the Sky Emperor Palace's sky prides. He activated his Eye of Revelation. These sky prides did not change much. Their strengths were still the same. Compared to Nangong Huang and the others, Nangong Huang and the others still had a higher chance of winning. Where did the Sky Emperor Palace Lord get his confidence from? At that thought, Chu Kuangren looked at the judges. Did they bribe the judges? No way. Are these sage orthodoxies that shameless? Besides, even if they did, can they still distort the truth in front of everyone? Chu Kuangren thought to himself. While he was deep in thought, the matches had already begun. The Sky Emperor Palace's first representative was Jing Nian. Sect leader, let me go first. Zhu Ni smiled. She had witnessed Jing Nian's strength in the previous matches, so she was confident that she could defeat her. Chu Kuangren compared the information of both parties. If it was a one-on-one battle, Zhu Ni's chances of winning were more than 80%. After some thought, he agreed. Be careful. All right. Zhu Ni nodded and walked into the arena. She and Jing Nian looked at each other and walked into the circle of light together. When they reappeared, they were already in a spacious underground cave. Dim candlelight flickered around them. Zhu Ni looked around and found that the stone walls of the cave contained some kind of strange material, like some kind of ore. Could this be a mineral vein? Zhu Ni thought to herself. At that moment, a palm chi came whistling from behind her. A sword appeared in Jun Yi's hand, and with a backhand slash, a water-blue sword chi disintegrated the palm chi, and she used the momentum to retreat several dozen feet. Opposite her, Jing Nian, who was dressed in red, was staring at her. Her entire body was circulating with a surging Daoist rhyme as she raised her hand and launched another palm attack. Is this the Sky Emperor Palace's Saint technique, 6 combined palms? Jun Yi recognized this palm technique and counterattacked with her sword. The long sword danced, and the aqua-blue sword light seemed to transform into endless waves. It was the Saint technique, tidal sword technique. She cultivated the water-based sword principle, so this set of sword techniques was very compatible with her. The power she displayed was even stronger than Nangong Huang's. The unceasing sword energy disintegrated the palm energy. Jing Nian's expression changed abruptly as she could not help but be slammed into the stone wall by the sword energy. Such powerful sword chi. Jing Nian was secretly shocked. If you don't want to suffer, then admit defeat. Jun Yi said lightly. Admit defeat? How is that possible? Jing Nian took out a guqin. I'll let you witness the power of the Sky Emperor Palace's #1 guqin technique, the Honorable Emperor Tune. The moment she took out the guqin, Jun Yi immediately attacked. Sword energy surrounded her like a tsunami. Jing Nian's expression changed as she played with all 10 of her fingers. The sound of the guqin reverberated in the underground cave. It was vast and majestic like the arrival of an emperor, causing the entire underground cave to shake. The violent sound of the guqin shattered the sword energy around Jun Yi and pushed her back in an instant. The hand that was holding the sword was trembling slightly. How is this possible? Jun Yi could not believe it. She had seen Jing Nian's guqin music in the competition before, but the power of her guqin music was far from this level. How did it suddenly become so much stronger? Even Jing Nian herself could not believe it, let alone Jun Yi. What's going on? Wait a minute. Jing Nian suddenly noticed something. She looked at the surrounding mountain walls and said in surprise, "This is a mine, and the ore here is an echo stone." The echo stone, as its name suggested, was a stone that could produce echoes. 1 or 2 echo stones would not enhance the power of the guqin music. But now, there was an entire echo mineral vein here. Jing Nian's guqin music could be greatly enhanced here. It would be a piece of cake for her to deal with an honorable supreme here. The heavens are on my side. Jing Nian thought that she was lucky that the competition was held here. She quickly plucked the strings of the guqin excitedly. The sound of the guqin reverberated wildly in the entire echo stone vein. With the support of the stone vein, the sound would not stop for a long time, and its power would multiply. Boom, boom. Wave after wave of guqin music crashed into Jun Yi like a tidal wave. Even though Jun Yi tried her best to block it and activate her sword energy, it was still not enough in the face of the power that was supported by the geographical advantage. Soon, Jun Yi was severely injured. She gripped her long sword tightly and activated her spiritual energy to resist the guqin music. She forced her body to move and attack, but her consciousness was beginning to blur under the interference of the guqin music. In the arena, on the viewing platform, a surge of raging Daoist rhyme swept out. Chu Kuangren's gaze was like lightning as he looked at the judges. I need an explanation. Why is there an echo stone vein in the competition venue? Under Chu Kuangren's domineering aura, the 13th prefect felt his legs turn to jelly. He bit the bullet and said, the 10,000 secret realm contains many locations, and the competition venue is randomly selected from these locations. Are you trying to tell me that we're just unlucky that we randomly picked this echo stone vein in the competition? Chu Kuangren said coldly. Sect leader Chu, please calm down. You can't blame the judges just because you're unlucky, can you? The Sky Emperor Palace Lord chuckled. Sky Emperor Palace Lord, you should know better than me whether it's really luck or not. Chu Kuangren suppressed his anger and said. Sect leader, this is bad. Jun-yi can't hold on any longer. Murong Xian said in a serious tone. Under the influence of the Guqi music, Jun-yi, who was in the mine, had already started to bleed from all 7 orifices. Even so, she still did not collapse. However, everyone could tell that she could not win. We admit defeat for this match. Chu Kuangren said coldly to the 13th prefect. He could not risk Jun-yi's life for a mere competition. The competition will only end if the contestant personally surrenders, or if it's confirmed that she has lost consciousness and no longer has the ability to resist. Otherwise, even sect leader Chu has no right to stop the competition. The 13th prefect said with a hint of a smile in his eyes. He had lost so many soul stones to Chu Kuangren, so it was only natural that he held a grudge against Chu Kuangren. Now that he saw Chu Kuangren being defeated, he was secretly pleased. Buzz. A sword chi slashed across the 13th prefect's body, splitting the judge's booth into 2. The 13th prefect, who was secretly pleased with himself, was so shocked by the sudden sword chi that he fell to the ground. A chill ran down his spine and quickly engulfed his entire body. It was as if he had just taken a trip to the gates of hell. Don't force me to tear down the first city. Chu Kuangren's gaze was as cold as a sword as he stared at the 13th prefect. This time, the 13th prefect did not dare to say anything more. He hurriedly opened the light barrier and sent both Jing Nian and Jun-yi back to the arena. Chapter 306. Both Jun-yi and Jing Nian were teleported back to the arena. Chu Kuangren immediately went to Jun-yi and saw that she was bleeding from her 7 orifices and was in a daze. He glared coldly at Jing Nian, causing her to tremble in fear. She could not help but crumple to the ground. This is a competition. What are you trying to do? Chu Kuangren ignored her and immediately cast the spring breeze healing technique to heal Jun-yi's body. Sect leader, I'm sorry. Jun-yi murmured under Chu Kuangren's support. Eventually, she could not hold on any longer and fainted. The spring breeze healing technique could heal physical injuries, but not only did the Guqi music damage the body, it also greatly affected the mind. In this regard, the spring breeze healing technique was not very effective. Chu Kuangren held on to Jun-yi. Although she had already fainted, he still said, "You've done well." Sect leader, how's Jun-yi? Murong Xian, Jin Fian, and the others gathered around. She just fainted. It's nothing serious. Fian, bring her back to rest. Chu Kuangren handed Jun-yi over to Jin Fian. The spectators around them were in a heated discussion. Did the Black Heaven sect lose? I can't believe the Black Heaven sect lost. This is the first time this has happened since the beginning of the competition. The Sky Emperor Palace sure is powerful. It's not really a loss. It's just bad luck for the Black Heaven sect to draw that kind of setting as the venue. The Linghu clan and the Thunder Falcon tribe were watching the battle too. They could not help but laugh when they saw the Black Heaven sect lose. The people from the Black Heaven sect have finally lost. How delightful. Yeah, let them be happy. Flowers don't bloom for 100 days, and people don't have 1,000 days of happiness. I knew the Black Heaven sect wouldn't be able to keep winning like this. Sect leader Chu, we can move on to the next round, the Sky Emperor Palace Lord said with a proud smile. Let's continue, Chu Kuangren said. Chang Ao, it's your turn for the next round. Chang Ao was the Sky Emperor Palace's young emperor. He was also the most outstanding sky pride of the Sky Emperor Palace's younger generation, and his strength was not any weaker than Chang Ao. It seemed that the Sky Emperor Palace did not plan to give the Black Heaven sect any chance to turn the tables. They wanted to win 2 rounds in a row. Master, we can't afford to lose the next round. I'll go. Lan Yu calmly said. 2 out of 3 matches. If they lost another match, they would not be able to win the championship. Yes. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He was quite confident in Lan Yu's abilities. Lan Yu and Chang Ao walked into the circle of light. This time, the two of them appeared in a swamp surrounded by thick miasma. Not only that, but the miasma also contained an extremely evil and unsettling dark aura. As if it had sensed Lan Yu's holy radiant body, the dark energy began to fluctuate violently like oil being poured on a raging fire. The dark energy surged wildly towards Lan Yu, who was out of place, as if it was trying to drive her away. Chang Ao's Daoist rhyme accompanied the attack of the dark qi. It was a surging and overbearing aura. It was somewhat similar to the Daoist rhyme of the Overlord clan, but it was more majestic, just like a high and mighty emperor. Lan Yu frowned as she pushed the holy radiant body to its limit. Her Daoist physique transformed into thousands of rays of light that surged in all directions. Chang Ao's Daoist rhyme was actually forced back by the dark energy. However, Lan Yu was not optimistic. The surrounding dark energy continued to corrode her while Chang Ao watched from the side, waiting for an opportunity to strike. He was not in a hurry to attack. It was obvious that he had made up his mind to exhaust Lan Yu before defeating her in one fell swoop. In the arena, Chu Kuangren laughed. He was so angry that he laughed. The people around him could not help but feel a little scared when they heard his laughter. It was daytime and the sun was shining brightly, but everyone felt that the air around them was as cold as ice, giving them goosebumps. What a random move. First it was the echo mineral vein, then this swamp with dark energy. If it's not strengthening the Sky Emperor Palace's disciples, it's weakening the Black Heaven sect's disciples. What a random move. Chu Kuangren's words became colder and colder. Even so, he still sat on the spot without moving. However, the 13th prefect felt that it would be better if he was as angry as before. Now, the calmer and more composed his opponent was, the more uneasy the 13th prefect felt. It was like the calm before the storm. Although nothing could be seen on the surface, the situation was already turbulent and unpredictable. Inside the swamp of the Thousand Secret Realm, Lan Yu was in a tough battle. Chang Ao's strength was not stronger than Chang Tian's, but with the suppression of the dark energy around them, Lan Yu could not unleash her full strength and was at a disadvantage. This is troublesome. Lan Yu frowned. If this went on, she would be exhausted by the dark energy around her before she could be defeated by Chang Ao. At that thought, Lan Yu's spiritual power was pushed to its limit, and an endless divine radiance erupted. Holy blaze! White flames erupted and ignited the dark energy. A large amount of dark energy was burned away by the holy blaze, and the thick miasma thinned out. Seeing this, Chang Ao's expression changed slightly. I didn't expect you to use so much spiritual power to dispel the dark qi. But the dark qi here is endless, and it will soon gather again. What you're doing is just a waste of effort. As long as I can defeat you before the dark energy gathers again, I'll be fine, Lan Yu said. Oh, how much spiritual power do you have left? How dare you say something like that? Chang Ao sneered. It's enough. Lan Yu said no more and attacked Chang Ao with all her might. Holy blaze, divine rain of light, immovable luminous fist, all sorts of skills were at her fingertips, and she only attacked without defending. Under such a strategy, Chang Ao was suppressed. He could only defend himself and had no chance to fight back. In the end, Lan Yu took the opportunity to smash the scepter of light in her hand on Chang Ao's body. A huge force erupted and blasted him into the swamp. Did I succeed? Lan Yu thought to herself. Even an honorable supreme would find it hard to defend against that attack of hers. What a pity, what a pity. At that moment, Chang Ao rushed out of the swamp. A black inner armor could be seen among his torn clothes. It was this inner armor that blocked most of the attack's power. A defensive sacred weapon. Exactly. What a pity. If it wasn't for this sacred weapon, you could have defeated me with that attack. Chang Ao laughed and threw a punch. A majestic Daoist rhyme erupted and blasted Lan Yu, who had little spiritual power left, into the swamp. There was an extremely dense dark energy there. In an instant, the dark energy surged into Lan Yu's body. With little spiritual power left, she could not resist it at all. The dark energy rampaged through her body and destroyed it. I've won this battle. The Black Heaven sect has lost. Chang Ao smiled. Just as he was waiting to be teleported out to celebrate his victory, a white light suddenly flashed in the swamp. Chang Ao's expression changed. What's going on? This dense spiritual power and Daoist rhyme. She can't possibly have this kind of power left. Boom! A wave of water splashed out from the swamp. A white spear shot out from the swamp. Chapter 307. A white spear shot out from the swamp. The sudden attack made Chang Ao's expression change. He frantically threw out a punch, and a majestic Daoist rhyme erupted in an instant. However, that Daoist rhyme was instantly penetrated by the white spear and landed on the inner armor on his chest. Although the inner armor was a sacred artifact, the backlash from the spear's attack still caused Chang Ao to scream out in misery. With a loud explosion, Chang Ao was blasted away and fell to the ground. Meanwhile, Lan Yu slowly flew out from the swamp. Although she was covered in mud, her body still emanated a faint holy glow. You've broken through. Chang Ao lay on the ground in disbelief. He could tell that Lan Yu had broken through during the battle and reached the late stage of the honorable realm. It's all thanks to you that a large amount of dark qi entered my body and triggered a reaction from my Daoist physique. I was already on the verge of breaking through, so the stimulation saved me a lot of trouble. Lan Yu said. It was just like how Chu Kuangren used high temperatures to stimulate Shang Qingshue's Daoist physique to produce a chill. Although the dark qi could suppress the power of light, it could also stimulate the growth of the holy radiant physique to a certain extent. Just like the endless cycle of yin and yang. Of course, it was a very dangerous attempt. If one was not careful, one could explode on the spot. Lan Yu could only say that luck was on Lan Yu's side. Holding the scepter of light, Lan Yu channeled her Daoist rhyme and gathered her spiritual power at the tip of the scepter. She was about to strike Chang Ao. Meanwhile, Chang Ao's bones and tendons had already been shattered by that attack. He was now lying on the ground, unable to move at all. If this continued, Chang Ao would definitely die. I admit defeat. At that critical moment, Chang Ao yelled and surrendered. Lan Yu put away her scepter and walked up to the man. She then kicked him into the swamp. This kick is for Junyi. Then, both of them were teleported back to the arena. Lan Yu's face turned pale, and her body went limp. She almost knelt on the ground. However, Chu Kuangren arrived in time and held her in his arms. How are you? Although I managed to break through at the last moment, I've used up too much of my spiritual power. That last attack took all of my strength. Take the pill first and adjust your breathing. Chu Kuangren used the spring breeze healing technique and fed Shang Qingxue a medicinal pill before asking her to take good care of Lan Yu. Not far away. The Sky Emperor Palace Lord's expression was very ugly. D****. How could they lose like that? Lan Yu actually managed to break through at the last moment. How lucky. Damn, it's a tie now. His gaze flickered, and he said to a youth beside him, next match, Jin Yun, you go. You must win for me. I understand, Palace Master. The young man called Jin Yun nodded. On the Black Heaven sect side, Murong Xian stepped forward. Sect leader, this Jin Yun cultivates an ice elemental technique. My Divine Nine Suns technique just so happens to counter it. Let me take on the last match. I will never lose. Murong Xian's eyes flickered with determination. Be careful. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. The final battle of the hegemony tournament. Murong Xian vs. Jin Yun of the Sky Emperor Palace, begin. Both of them walked into the circle of light. As soon as they stepped out of the circle of light, Murong Xian felt a wave of chilling intent sweeping towards him. He found himself in a snowy mountain. This time, the audience booed. The first time could be a coincidence, the second time could be an accident, but there was no way to explain the third time. All three matches were in the Sky Emperor Palace's favor. Not many would believe that there was nothing fishy going on. *ck me, this is obviously against the Black Heaven sect. That's right, there's definitely something fishy going on here. You call this random? There must be something fishy going on. The Black Heaven sect has won so far with their own strength. I can't believe they're being targeted like this in the finals. Sigh, I can only say that the Black Heaven sect is too famous now. Not only that, but they even won 1 billion soul stones from the Sky Emperor Palace. How could the Sky Emperor Palace swallow this? I'm afraid they've bribed the first city somehow. What's the point of doing this? They might as well just give the championship to the Sky Emperor Palace. The Sky Emperor Palace has long since given up on the championship. All they want is to suppress the Black Heaven sect. The audience was in a heated discussion. ***, this judge is obviously on the Sky Emperor Palace's side. Nangong Huang said angrily. The other Daoists were also furious. On the other hand, Chu Kuangren looked calm as if he was not surprised by the scene before him. This Chu Kuangren is really good at keeping his cool. The Overlord tribe leader could not help but sneer. How did the Sky Emperor Palace bribe the judge? Something's not right. Some of the Orthodoxy's sect leaders looked at Chu Kuangren's calm demeanor and felt that something was not right. He's too calm. The White Lotus leader took a deep breath and said. As the Black Heaven sect's ally, the White Lotus leader had some understanding of Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren was not the kind of person who would suffer losses. Now that he had encountered such unfair treatment in the tournament, how could he tolerate it? This was clearly illogical. This is the Chu Kuangren who wreaked havoc in the Murong clan, the Shang clan, and even killed a sage. He doesn't look like the legend. Some of the Sage Orthodoxy's sect leaders shook their heads and laughed. I can't help but feel that something's not right. The Thunder Falcon tribe leader, Linghu clan leader, and the others looked at each other and saw the uneasiness in each other's eyes. As the saying goes, no one knows you better than your enemies. The Linghu clan leader and the Thunder Falcon tribe leader knew Chu Kuangren much better than the other Orthodoxy's sect leaders. They knew very well that Chu Kuangren's calmness was too abnormal. However, speculations were just speculations. Perhaps Chu Kuangren had changed? Perhaps he had become more mature after being a sect leader for a few years? Everyone thought to themselves. Soon, they turned their attention to the tournament. Murong Xian and Jin Yun, who had just stepped into the snowy mountain, were staring at each other from afar. Jin Yun said, "This is a great place." Indeed. Since you're an ice-based Dao practitioner, this snowy mountain is indeed a good place for you. That's good too, at least I won't have to feel too bored, Murong Xian said as he took out his long sword. Then, an extremely scorching Daoist rime erupted from his body, and the surrounding ice and snow instantly melted into a puddle of water. Murong Xian's figure dashed out and brandished his long sword. He ignored the snowstorm around him and unleashed his full combat strength towards Jin Yun. Under such an attack, Jin Yun was initially suppressed. However, as he gradually got used to it, he began to use the power of the snowstorm to enhance his own cultivation technique to counterattack Murong Xian. Ice Crystal Blast. Jin Yun's spiritual power surged and a surge of ice-cold Daoist rime spread out, turning into countless ice crystals that blasted towards Murong Xian along with the snowstorm. Facing this attack, Murong Xian's entire body was covered in a layer of crimson flames. He allowed the ice crystals to cut through his body, but his body did not stop moving towards Jin Yun as he swung his long sword. The scorching wave of flames melted the snowstorm and hit Jin Yun's body, sending him flying. D****, does this guy have a death wish? Chapter 308. Does this guy have a death wish? Jin Yun felt his scalp tingle as he watched Murong Xian attack without defending. Murong Xian was stronger than him, but he had the advantage of being in the right place. Logically speaking, he should have been able to defeat his opponent. However, Murong Xian was insane. He only attacked and did not defend. It was as if he no longer cared about his life. How terrifying could a person who did not care about his life be? Jin Yun finally experienced it. Crimson flames danced in the sky while scorching sword energy turned into heat waves that rolled in the snowy world. It was the only bright color in the snow. During the battle, Murong Xian's body was already covered in many bloody scars caused by the ice crystals. Waves of cold energy continuously invaded his body through his wounds, freezing his limbs and bones. Opposite him, Jin Yun, who was also injured, sneered as he watched Murong Xian's movements stiffen. The chilling energy contained within these ice crystals of mine can erode meridians, flesh, and even freeze your internal organs. Right now, you should be having a hard time moving, right? I have won this battle, Jin Yun said. Hee. It's too early to say that. Murong Xian smiled faintly. Crimson flames gushed out of his body and quickly dispelled the cold energy in his body. Jin Yun's eyes narrowed when he saw this. You actually burned your spiritual energy in your body. You're using this method to dispel the cold energy, but the flames will burn your body as well. Lunatic, do you really not want to live anymore? A hint of pain appeared on Murong Xian's face, but he still grinned and said, compared to having my spiritual mound crippled, compared to the sect leader's training, this little pain is nothing. I did say that I would win. Murong Xian dashed forward and began his second round of attacks. His injuries were more serious, but his attacks were getting fiercer. Raging flames surrounded his body, and the long sword in his hand trembled. Even the ice and snow around him couldn't make him retreat at all. Right now, Murong Xian was like a flaming demon who had just walked out of hell. Damn it! Jin Yun was terrified when he saw Murong Xian's suicidal attacks. Divine Nine Suns Technique, 7 Suns /. Murong Xian gathered all the spiritual energy in his body and a majestic flame gushed out from him, turning into 7 gigantic fireballs. It was as if there were 7 suns filled with incomparably scorching heat. Under this power, the entire snowy mountain actually produced an avalanche. The 7 suns merged with the sword qi and slashed at Murong Xian in a frenzy. Icicle Mirror. Jin Yun roared, and his spiritual power surged. The ice elemental Daoist rhyme instantly exploded, and the mixed spiritual power transformed into a hexagonal ice mirror in front of him. The first fireball smashed onto the ice mirror and exploded. Powerful qi swept out in all directions. Then came the second, third, fourth. When the fifth one landed on the ice mirror finally couldn't take it anymore. Cracks appeared on its surface, and it shattered into countless ice crystals. The sixth and seventh fireballs smashed into Jin Yun's body. The scorching fire-attributed sword qi drilled into Jin Yun's body, crazily destroying his body, causing him to let out a series of blood-curdling screams. With a thud, Jin Yun fell to the ground with smoke coming out of his body. Murong Xian, on the other hand, laid on the ground in exhaustion after unleashing his final attack. He found it difficult to even move a finger. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. How does this count? Is it a draw? Don't tell me there's going to be another round? No, look. On the screen, Murong Xian, who was initially lying on the ground, slowly crawled up from the snowy ground and staggered to regain his footing. Opposite him, Jin Yun struggled to get up as well, but he failed in the end. His head tilted and he fainted. Seeing this, Wuxia raised his arm high and announced his victory. At that moment, the entire arena erupted in cheers. We've won. The Black Heaven sect has won. We've finally won. We've made a comeback. All hail the Black Heaven sect. Beside Chu Kuangren, Nangong Huang, Qin Wushuang, and a few other Daoists were extremely excited too. They were so happy that they almost jumped up. However, compared to their excitement, Chu Kuangren's expression was very calm. His gaze was cold and emotionless. He came to the arena and helped the injured Wuxia up. Do you want to die? Chu Kuangren said angrily. I promised the sect leader that I'll bring back the championship. How can I go back on my word? Wuxia chuckled. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he could no longer hold on and fainted. Damn, another one fainted. Chu Kuangren cast the spring breeze healing technique on him and said to Nangong Huang and the others, you guys can go back first. Everyone was confused. Sect leader, we've won. Do we not want the prize? It's fine. I'll take it back for you guys. Chu Kuangren smiled. Lan Yu pondered for a while before he said to Nangong Huang and the others, let's go back first. I'll leave everything here to you, master. Well. Alright then. Nangong Huang and the others seemed to have sensed something. The few of them left the arena. Not far away, the Sky Emperor Palace Lord was so angry that his mouth twitched. We lost, we actually lost. How is this possible? We've already gone this far and they still lost. How can the Black Heaven sect disciples be so strong? The Sky Emperor Palace Lord was furious, but there was nothing he could do. Meanwhile, in the judge's booth, the 13th prefect announced reluctantly, the championship has come to an end. The winner is, the Black Heaven sect. The audience cheered. The sage orthodoxies shook their heads and sighed. In the end, the Black Heaven sect still won. That's right. This sect is too amazing. I can't believe there are so many outstanding sky prides besides Chu Kuangren. However, the crowd soon realized that something was wrong. Lan Yu, Nangong Huang, and the others had left? What was going on? Were they not going to receive the prize? Chu Kuangren hasn't left yet. The crowd looked at Chu Kuangren in the arena, confused. In the judge's booth, the 13th prefect said, Sect leader Chu, you've won. Why did your disciples leave first? They've worked hard. Let them go back and rest. Let me, the sect leader, clean up the mess for them. Help them receive the prize? Sure. The 13th prefect took out a yin and yang ring. When he passed it to Chu Kuangren, he saw a pale palm growing larger in front of him. Then, a slap landed on his face, and his body was sent flying into the wall. Chu Kuangren caught his opponent's yin and yang ring and said, aside from receiving the prize, I'll also seek justice for them. The sudden turn of events caused everyone's expression to change. Chu Kuangren had hit a judge? The sage orthodoxies that were about to leave stopped in their tracks. It's here, it's here. The real show is about to begin. The Thunder Falcon tribe leader, Linghu clan head, and the others' eyes lit up. The White Lotus leader could not help but shake her head. I knew it. How could this guy let this go after receiving such treatment? I bet he's been holding it in for a long time. It must have been tough on him. In the judge's booth, the 11th and 12th prefect stood up and glared at Chu Kuangren furiously. What are you trying to do? Chapter 309. What are you trying to do? In the judge's booth, the 11th and 12th prefects stood up and glared at Chu Kuangren furiously. However, a cold surge of Daoist rhyme erupted from Chu Kuangren's body and instantly swept across the entire arena, almost crushing the two prefects to the ground. Both of them were terrified. After all, they were both honorable supremes. However, they were suppressed to such an extent by Chu Kuangren's Daoist rhyme. They were in disbelief. "You're asking me what I'm trying to do? Heh, what a joke." Chu Kuangren sneered before he continued, abolishing the point system and forbidding the use of medicinal pills. "I've tolerated all of that. But you've challenged my bottom line time and time again. You've openly cheated in front of me and used the Thousand Secret Realm against the Black Heaven sect. Do you really think I'm blind?" As Chu Kuangren uttered his last sentence, the Daoist rhyme that emanated from his body became even more terrifying. The entire arena was shrouded in his rage, and all of the Orthodoxy's sect leaders and skyprides were terrified. Chang Tian, Chang Ao, Xiao Tianai, Li Yin, and the other skyprides could not help but tremble as they looked at the white-robed figure in disbelief. Just the aura alone made them unable to resist, and they almost fell to the ground. What kind of terrifying existence was that? Is this Chu Kuangren's true form? I think he was just messing around with Chang Tian before. It was like he was toying with an ant. Faced with Chu Kuangren's rage, the judges in the judges' booth felt like their scalps were about to explode. They were terrified. "Chu Kuangren, what are you trying to do? I need an explanation." Chu Kuangren said coldly, "The Black Heaven sect needs an explanation from the First City. I want the First City and those who bribed you to reveal the truth behind this competition and apologize to the Black Heaven sect." Reveal the truth behind this competition? Apologize? The Sky Emperor Palace Lord and the prefect's expressions changed upon hearing that. Many people could tell that there was something fishy going on. However, that was one thing. Even if the world knew about it, it would not affect the First City much without any evidence. However, if it were to be revealed, it would mean that the Sky Emperor Palace and the First City had taken the initiative to come clean. That would be a huge blow. The most direct impact was that the reputation of the two superpowers would hit rock bottom. "Chu Kuangren, don't cross the line." "Oh, is this too much? I'll give you another choice, and that is to let me tear down the First City." As soon as he finished speaking, a vast pressure suddenly descended from the sky. There was also a powerful sage Daoist rhyme mixed within. The sage had arrived. A black-robed middle-aged man then stepped through the air and stared at Chu Kuangren with a piercing gaze. Rumor has it that Chu Kuangren is an insolent person. Now that I've seen it for myself, I can see that you live up to your reputation. Not only did the Black Heaven sect win the competition, they even want to destroy the First City. What kind of logic is this? The 11th and 12th prefects were delighted to see him. "Greetings, 3rd prefect." This black-robed middle-aged man was the First City's 3rd prefect. He was also one of the First City's 3 saints and was currently in charge. Chu Kuangren was still relentless despite the appearance of the sage. He said coldly, "The Black Heaven sect could have easily won the competition, but you people interfered and caused my disciples to be severely injured. They even almost lost their lives. Do you think you'll be fine just because we won? You're too naive. Let me repeat myself. Either the First City makes a public apology, or I'll tear down the First City today." Very well, very well. Chu Kuangren, to be so arrogant and domineering. I'd like to see how you're going to tear down the First City. The 3rd prefect laughed out of anger as a powerful sage aura erupted from his body. That aura was more terrifying than most of the sages that Chu Kuangren had encountered in the past. It was even more powerful than the Shang clan's 6th-step sage. A 7th-step sage. The First City's 3rd prefect was a 7th-step sage. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation to analyze his opponent's strength. Looks like we'll have to fight then. Chu Kuangren unsheathed his descendant self-sword. The razor-sharp sword Qi wreaked havoc in the void. Upon seeing that, the spectators in the arena did not dare to stay any longer and quickly left. That was the combat strength of a sage. Compared to that, the previous battles in the championship were just child's play. If they stayed any longer and got caught up in the battle, even an honorable would not be able to escape unscathed. I've long wanted to meet you in person. Come. The third prefect said calmly. He then raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. A large amount of spiritual power converged and formed into a milky white giant hand. With a powerful gust of wind, it came crashing down on Chu Kuangren. That attack was so powerful that it shook the entire arena. On the other hand, Chu Kuangren did not retreat or evade. Instead, he unleashed a palm attack of his own. Golden spiritual power surged and formed into a giant golden hand. A boundless and majestic Buddhist light shone and blasted towards the giant hand. Sage ruler technique, giant palm of exorcism. Boom! The two giant hands collided in the air. The golden Buddhist light and the white spiritual power mixed together and turned into a violent shockwave that spread across the entire arena. The ground cracked, sand and stones were blown away, and the surrounding walls collapsed. The frenzied chi swept across, continuously smashing into the audience seats. Immediately, the audience seats were smashed into a mess, full of potholes. The audience members who had run away earlier could not help but feel a lingering fear when they saw that. If they were one step slower, they would have become a pile of minced meat by now. The combat strength of a sage was just too terrifying for them. Buddhism is all about compassion. But I don't think sect leader Chu has learned the essence of Buddhism at all. The third prefect snorted. I'm not a Buddhist to begin with, but I do know that Buddhism is both compassionate and enraged. Chu Kuangren sat with his legs crossed, and a majestic Buddhist light surged out from his body, forming a giant golden Buddha in the void. It was the Emperor technique, Tathagata rebirth mantra. The giant golden Buddha sat in the void and suddenly unleashed a palm attack towards the third prefect. Buddhist light gushed out like a tsunami. Within that attack, there was even a surge of Emperor's aura. Faced with that attack, the third prefect's expression changed slightly. A terrifying surge of Daoist rhyme erupted from his body and turned into a barrier. However, even if he was a seventh-step sage, his spiritual barrier was nothing in front of that palm attack. With a loud explosion, the spiritual barrier was instantly shattered. The third prefect was blasted a few hundred feet away by that boundless energy. His hair that was initially tied up with a hairpin was instantly scattered by that attack, making him look like a mess. The people from the orthodoxies were speechless when they saw that giant golden Buddha. That power was just too terrifying. He could blast a seventh-step sage away with just one palm attack. There are only a handful of people in the Buddhist world who can do that. Chu Kuangren has such a Buddhist cultivation technique, and he even mastered it to such an extent. It's unbelievable. I heard that some people in the Buddhist world call him a reincarnated living Buddha. I thought it was just nonsense, but now it seems that it's not without reason. A Buddhist light like that is unheard of. Chapter 310. Chu Kuangren cast the Tathagata rebirth mantra and repelled the third prefect with a single palm attack. The third prefect's hair was disheveled and he looked shocked. He had heard of the legend of Chu Kuangren killing a sage, but he was a seventh-step sage. He was only one step away from becoming a great sage, which was not something an ordinary sage could compare to. However, Chu Kuangren had repelled him with a single palm attack. Moreover, it looked like he was doing it with ease. This guy's combat strength is truly terrifying. Although the third prefect was repelled by a single palm attack and embarrassed himself, he did not attack recklessly. Instead, he was gathering his strength and observing Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren sneered when he saw that. What's wrong? You're a seventh-step sage, so afraid that you don't even have the guts to fight? He dispersed the Buddhist light and the giant golden Buddha disappeared. Do you think this will appease my anger? Today, I'm going to tear down your first city. Chu Kuangren said as he looked at the 13 floating islands in the sky above the first city. That was the Prefect Island, the place where the 13th prefect lived. He leaped into the sky and turned into a stream of light before he flew out of the floating islands. Let's start with these islands. His speed was extremely fast. His phantom light strike was almost at its peak. By the time the third prefect reacted and wanted to stop him, Chu Kuangren had already arrived above one of the islands. A majestic surge of Daoist rhyme erupted, causing the ground to tremble and terrifying earth qi to soar into the sky. Under the guidance of Chu Kuangren's Daoist rhyme and spiritual power, the earth qi gathered in the sky and formed a towering ancient godly mountain. Stop! The third prefect roared. However, Chu Kuangren ignored him and smashed the godly mountain down. Boom! The godly mountain's impact caused the void to rumble and a violent gale swept across. The entire island shook violently and the ground began to crack. When Chu Kuangren was still in the honorable realm, his human mountain stamp was already powerful enough to fight a sage. Now, he had reached the honorable realm. Even a seventh-step sage like the third prefect was terrified by the power of that attack. The third prefect arrived in front of the crashing sacred mountain, and an overbearing sage Daoist rhyme erupted from his body. He then slammed his palm forward, and his spiritual power turned into a giant white hand that blotted out the sky and went up against the sacred mountain. Amidst the rumbling, the speed of the divine mountain's descent slowed down. The ground beneath the third prefect's feet instantly caved in. The entire island trembled and tilted. You want to block it? Can you? Chu Kuangren snorted softly. The spiritual energy in his body surged and the six supreme foundations released a divine light. Countless Daoist rhymes circulated on the surface of his body. It was the supreme Daoist physique, the all techniques returned to one Daoist physique. This Daoist physique was extremely powerful. Not only could it allow Chu Kuangren to activate the transcendental powers, but it could also strengthen any technique in his hands. With the enhancement of the 10,000 techniques coalescence Daoist physique, the power of the human mountain stamp multiplied, and the terrifying divine mountain smashed the giant white hand into pieces. With a loud boom, the divine mountain smashed the third prefect onto the small island. In an instant, an endless amount of earth qi violently attacked the entire island. The island, which was dozens of kilometers in diameter, crumbled, and the floating formation was destroyed as it fell from the sky. The cultivators in the first city were so scared that their faces turned pale when they saw the falling island, and they began to flee for their lives. This Chu Kuangren must be crazy. What he's doing is no different from declaring war on the first city. Sigh, the first city has gone a little overboard this time. They've messed up a great championship like this. D****. Of all the people they could have offended, they just had to provoke that lunatic. Great, now who can stop this guy? The cultivators in the first city could not help but lament as they looked at the fallen island. They were extremely shocked. These 13 islands had been floating above the first city for God knows how many years, and nothing unusual had ever happened to them. Yet now, they had been forcefully smashed down by a single person. This incident was a huge shock to the people of the first city. Boom boom, when the small island finally smashed onto the first city, the dust and smoke it stirred up swept across the area like a tsunami. Everything within a radius of a few hundred kilometers was affected, and hundreds of buildings were destroyed. However, Chu Kuangren was not satisfied even after smashing one small island. He dashed towards the second small island. The people from the orthodoxies were dumbfounded when they saw that. F***ck things have gotten out of hand this time. Smashing an island isn't enough. Does Chu Kuangren really plan to tear down the first city of the realm? Such behavior is infuriating. The Thunder Falcon tribe leader, the Linghu clan head, and the others knew that Chu Kuangren was a crazy person, but they did not expect him to be this crazy. The first city of the realm. There were several sages in the city. Even top-notch sage orthodoxies like the Overlord Sage tribe and the Sky Emperor Palace would not dare to make an enemy out of it. Yet Chu Kuangren had already begun to tear down the city. Chu Kuangren arrived above the second small island. There was a prefect who lived here. When he saw Chu Kuangren destroy an island, the prefect was scared out of his wits. He went to the center of the island and activated a formation. A white light barrier suddenly appeared above the small island. Oh, a formation enchanted boundary. But can it stop me? Chu Kuangren sneered. This time, he did not use the human mountain stamp. Instead, he took out the descendant self sword from his waist and swung it. A dazzling purple sword ray pierced through the sky. The sword ray was like a meteor that landed on the white light barrier. Like a boulder falling into a lake, the surface of the white light barrier began to tremble violently, and ripples began to spread outwards. Then, cracks began to appear on the barrier. With a loud crack, the light barrier shattered under the purple sword ray, and the unstoppable sword ray landed on the island. The terrifying impact instantly sent the prefect flying, and the floating formation on the island was completely destroyed by the sword ray. With a loud rumbling sound, another island fell to the ground. Without another word, Chu Kuangren headed to the next island. At that moment, the third prefect, who was previously smashed into the island by Chu Kuangren's human mountain stamp, rushed out from the ruins. He came before Chu Kuangren and unleashed his seven-step sage's combat strength to its fullest. Every punch and kick he unleashed had the power to overwhelm the mountains and rivers. Chu Kuangren, the first city will never let this go. The third prefect's black hair danced wildly as he attacked Chu Kuangren. When Chu Kuangren heard that, he could not help but laugh. Never let this go? Do you think the Black Heaven sect will let this go? With the descendant self sword in his hand, sword chi surged. Even a seven-step sage like the third prefect could not gain much of an advantage against such power. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang, what are you waiting for? Do you really want to see him destroy the first city before you show yourself? The third prefect suddenly roared. From the Sky Emperor Palace's direction, a middle-aged man dressed in a golden robe walked out. It was the Sky Emperor Palace's sage. He was the one who bribed the third prefect to get his men to do some dirty tricks during the competition. Chu Kuangren's actions today were all because of him. Chapter 311. Chu Kuangren, a public apology is out of the question, but compensation is negotiable, Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang said. Screw you. Chu Kuangren sneered. Your Sky Emperor Palace still owes my Black Heaven sect 1 billion top-tier soul stones and 2 sage weapons. Compensation? Do you think I'm interested in your apology? Does that mean there's no room for negotiation? That's right. Either you make a public apology and compensate us by revealing everything you've done to the world and return justice to the Black Heaven sect's disciples. Or, after I'm done destroying the first city, I'll go to the Sky Emperor Palace and have some fun. Chu Kuangren stood in the air and said arrogantly. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang and the third prefect looked like they had just swallowed a fly when they heard him. Chu Kuangren, do you have to make such a big deal out of it just for a few disciples? Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang asked in confusion. That was what everyone was most puzzled about. The Black Heaven sect had already won the competition, and aside from some minor injuries, their disciples were mostly fine. Did Chu Kuangren have to make such a big deal out of some inside information? That was just too crazy. Everyone was confused. They had never seen a sect leader like that. Shouldn't a sect leader look at the bigger picture and prioritize the development of the orthodoxy? However, Chu Kuangren's actions were the exact opposite. He had gone against top-notch sage orthodoxies like the First City and the Sky Emperor Palace just for a few disciples. Wasn't this too silly? Even if he had to ask for more compensation from the First City and the Sky Emperor Palace, what would the Black Heaven sect gain by making them publicly apologize? There was no practical benefit to it at all. Is that necessary? Then let me tell you now. You may not care about justice, but to me, it's bigger than the heavens. My disciples have been wronged and treated unfairly. Do you think you can just give me compensation and let it go? Impossible. Chu Kuangren said forcefully. To him, a sect that only cared about benefits would be able to develop, but it would never go far. Murong Xian, Nangong Huang, and the others were the future pillars of the Black Heaven sect. He could not just let go of the unfair treatment they had suffered just because of some benefits. Even if Nangong Huang and the others did not care. But he could not. As the Black Heaven sect leader, he had the responsibility and obligation to demand an explanation for these disciples and seek justice. Furthermore, making the Sky Emperor Palace and the First City issue a public apology did not seem to have any practical benefits, but it would increase the Black Heaven sect's prestige, boost the disciples' confidence, and strengthen the disciples' sense of belonging to the Black Heaven sect. These invisible things were the most precious. Chu Kuangren, you're a lunatic. Heavenly King Sage Zhang said with a gloomy face. Madman? For the sake of my Black Heaven sect's disciples, I'm willing to go crazy. Chu Kuangren laughed out loud as a terrifying surge of Daoist rhyme erupted from his body. He then launched a palm attack at another island. The third prefect blocked the attack with his body, but he was still pushed back several thousand feet. Chu Kuangren's combat strength is not to be underestimated. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang, let's subdue him together. The third prefect yelled. All right. Heavenly King Sage Zhang nodded. Asking them to make a public apology was something that would ruin their reputations. They would never do such a thing. Under such circumstances, they could only subdue Chu Kuangren first. In fact, they might even be killed. A wisp of killing intent flashed through their eyes when they thought of this. Bring it on. Chu Kuangren took out the sacred emerald sword case, and 365 swords flew out from it, forming an incredibly mysterious sword formation. The Four Seasons Sword Formation. That was a legendary grade sword formation, and its power made Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang and the third prefect's expressions change. The sword chi shuttled back and forth around them. It was extremely sharp, and it contained the mysteries of the Four Seasons, making it very difficult to deal with. Prefects, attack Chu Kuangren's body and distract his mind so that he can't control the sword formation, the third prefect yelled. A few prefects then dashed out from the other islands. Each of them had the cultivation base of an honorable supreme, and some of them were even boundary sages who had ascended. Every one of them was a famous top-notch cultivator. The first city's resources were shocking. Attack! Chu Kuangren, don't you dare think that the first city is weak. Besides the first prefect and the second prefect, the rest of the prefects charged out and unleashed all kinds of different and powerful Daoist rhymes. Their violent auras filled the void and shook the heavens and earth. In the face of the oncoming prefects, Chu Kuangren was fearless. The sword chi within his body circulated, and 4 sword chi transformed into 4 clones. Each of the 4 clones held a treasured sword and faced the prefects head-on. Boom, 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 terrifying sword chi erupted from the void and slashed at the prefects. One must know that Chu Kuangren's current combat strength was almost unimaginable, and the sword chi clones that he created were not to be underestimated either. Each of them had the combat strength of a boundary sage, and they forcefully held the prefects back. What powerful sword chi clones! This won't do. Those below the sage level can't defeat Chu Kuangren's clones. This guy is too powerful. We can't attack Chu Kuangren's real body. With the power of his sword formation, even the third prefect and the others won't be able to hold on for long. D****, is there any way to affect the sword formation? At that moment, a sudden black fist chi exploded and landed on the sword formation. It affected the sword formation and created an opening. The third prefect and Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang took the opportunity to rush out of the sword formation. Oh, Grey Grill Sage! Chu Kuangren looked into the distance. The Grey Grill Sage slowly retracted his fist. He was the one who attacked just now. Chu Kuangren, you're too overbearing. Today, I shall join forces with the other 2 sages to suppress you. We'll let you know that in this world, you can't do whatever you want just because you have the strength. The Grey Grill sage said righteously with a cold gaze. He had a grudge against Chu Kuangren. Now that the Sky Emperor Palace and the First City had joined forces to deal with Chu Kuangren, how could he let go of such a golden opportunity? The Overlord Sage tribe has been flaunting their strength in the Black Warrior domain, and now they have the nerve to call me overbearing? What a joke. But it doesn't matter now. Didn't you attack to avenge your arm? This time, I don't mind chopping off your head as well. Chu Kuangren said with a cold gaze. Too bad you won't be able to do it. A sharp howl echoed in the void. A silver-white thunder falcon descended from the sky and transformed into a silver-haired old man. This old man was extremely muscular and exuded an extremely ferocious aura. He was the Thunder Falcon tribe's sage. Chu Kuangren, you killed the Thunder Falcon tribe's young emperor, Lei Ao. I think it's time for me to settle this score with you. The Thunder Falcon tribe's sage said indifferently. TSK, I can't believe that I've lured the 2 of you here to deal with the First City and the Sky Emperor Palace. Interesting. Chu Kuangren looked into the void and laughed. The sages in the sky don't need to watch anymore. Whoever wants to come down and challenge me, feel free to show yourself. Let's have a good fight. Chapter 312. Chu Kuangren was too powerful. Over the years, several sages had died in his hands, which made many sage orthodoxies extremely wary of him. However, no one had the guts or excuse to confront Chu Kuangren. Now, here was the excuse. Chu Kuangren had won the championship and wreaked havoc in the First City. They could use that as an excuse to assist the 3rd prefect in killing Chu Kuangren. Moreover, the alliance of the sages from the First City, Sky Emperor Palace, Thunder Falcon Tribe, and Overlord Sage Tribe had emboldened them. With so many sages, how could they not deal with Chu Kuangren? At that thought, a few sages were tempted. This was especially true for the sage orthodoxies that Chu Kuangren had won a lot of soul stones from. If Chu Kuangren were to die, they could simply renege on their debt. Chu Kuangren, it's not easy for a junior like you to achieve so much. However, your lack of morals and arrogance is unforgivable. Don't blame us for taking action then. A sage walked out from the void. He was the 3rd forefather of the Linghu clan, which also had a history with the Black Heaven sect. If you want to fight, let's fight. Cut the crap. Chu Kuangren pouted and said. Chu Kuangren, you can only blame yourself for going overboard with your actions. That's why you've angered the masses. Another sage stood out. It was the Tempest Mountain sage, who did not have a good relationship with the Black Heaven sect. Chu Kuangren calmly glanced at the sages. Overlord Sage Tribe, Thunder Falcon Tribe, Linghu Clan, Tempest Mountain, First City, Sky Emperor Palace. Are there any other sages who want to mess with me? The sages from the other orthodoxies looked at each other, but no one stood out. Although there were still some who wanted to take this opportunity to kill Chu Kuangren, the consequences would be unimaginable if they failed. They did not want to take the risk so easily. Elder Chu, I'll lend you a hand. At that moment, the School of White Lotus's sage suddenly stood out. She had hesitated before this. However, in the end, she still chose to help Chu Kuangren. 6 sages surrounded Chu Kuangren. To the crowd, Chu Kuangren had no chance of turning the tables. It was pointless for the School of White Lotus's sage to help. However, the School of White Lotus and the Black Heaven sect were allies. If she did not step out, their alliance would come to an end. This move of hers could be said to be a huge gamble. She was betting on the fact that Chu Kuangren had a way to turn the situation around. That way, she would be able to secure a stronger alliance for the School of White Lotus. Thank you for your kindness, but this is my Black Heaven sect's matter. Let me handle it myself. With that, Chu Kuangren turned the descendant self-sword in his hand, and the 365 longswords around him aimed at the 6 sages. "Come, let me experience the skills of the sages." Chu Kuangren smirked without fear. In fact, everyone could see excitement in his eyes. Lunatic. This fellow was truly a lunatic. The sages thought to themselves. Facing a sage with a cultivation below that of a sage was already unimaginable, but he was actually excited to face 6 sages with a cultivation below that of a sage. If he was not a lunatic, then what was he? Quite a number of cultivators in the first city had noticed this. All of them were dumbfounded. Facing 6 sages by himself. This was something that they did not even dare to imagine. Meanwhile, the Skyprides felt an indescribable sense of defeat when they saw that. They understood that Chu Kuangren's spirit alone was something they could never hope to achieve. Chu Kuangren, how dare he do this? Facing 6 sages with a cultivation below that of a sage? Only Chu Kuangren would do something as crazy as this. This guy is really too scary. Countless people looked at the white-robed figure in the sky, feeling that the petite figure had an unimaginable majesty. In the crowd, Lan Yu, Nangong Huang, and the others also saw Chu Kuangren. They stared at that figure with endless passion in their eyes. "Is the sect leader doing this for us?" Jin Fian murmured. "That's right." Lan Yu nodded. With Master's personality, he would never sit back and watch the people around him be treated unfairly. Sect leader, Nangong Huang and the others had an indescribable feeling. They were touched, resentful, and unwilling. They were touched by Chu Kuangren's actions, resentful of the shameless actions of the Sky Emperor Palace and the First City, but more than that, they were unwilling. They were too weak. They could only rely on Chu Kuangren to protect them. If they were stronger, why would they let Chu Kuangren face all of this alone? Lan Yu had the same thought too. She had never yearned for power as much as she did at that moment. In the sky, Chu Kuangren was facing 6 sages alone. Just as he was about to activate the sword formation, the Thunder Falcon tribe sage took out a black rock and threw it into the air. The rock crackled with the power of thunder and produced a strong magnetic force that greatly increased the difficulty of Chu Kuangren's sword formation. Countless swords vibrated violently in midair. "Oh, a prime magnet. No, this is a prime magnet." Chu Kuangren narrowed his eyes. A normal prime magnet would need at least 500 kilograms to affect his sword formation. The Shang clan had used this trick to restrain his sword formation before, but the Thunder Falcon tribe sage had only taken out 1. Forget 500 kilograms, he did not even know if there was even 1 kilogram. However, that terrifying magnetic force was even more terrifying than what Chu Kuangren had encountered in the Shang clan. Hence, this was no ordinary prime magnet. It was the essence of a prime magnet, the prime magnet. This piece of mother magnets was at least a saint-tier treasure. "Chu Kuangren, we've carefully studied your capabilities. Do you really think that we wouldn't be prepared for you?" The Thunder Falcon tribe sage smiled. The other sage's eyes lit up. His sword formation has been restrained, so his combat strength has been greatly reduced. Let's take this opportunity to suppress him. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang said loudly. Third forefather Linghu was the first to attack. Using his finger as a sword, a majestic sword-based Daoist rhyme gathered and turned into a terrifying sword shadow that slashed at Chu Kuangren. That attack caused the void to rumble as if it was about to be torn apart. Brilliant heaven-shaking fist. The Grey Grill Sage also attacked. With a punch, the violent chi turned into a black fist chi that descended like the might of the heavens. Azure Dragon Sword Art. The Tempest Mountain Sage moved his finger and a sword chi took the form of a dragon that carried a violent sage Daoist rhyme. The combined attack of the 3 sages was incredibly powerful. Chu Kuangren's sword formation was restrained, but a mysterious Daoist rhyme erupted from his body and formed white lotuses in the void. It was the sage ruler technique, the white lotus light of purification. The white lotuses contained an unparalleled defensive ability that disintegrated the sword chi and fist chi. However, it was still a sage-grade attack. Even if Chu Kuangren fully activated the white lotus light of purification, he still could not completely block it. The sword chi pierced through his shoulder, and the fist chi landed on his chest. Chu Kuangren was instantly sent flying and landed on the floating island far away. With a loud crash, the entire island shook for a moment. Smoke and dust filled the air, and everyone quickly looked over. Did he succeed? Chapter 313. Dust billowed around the island, and it seemed to tilt a little. Everyone looked over and saw a white-robed figure standing proudly in the dust. He's not dead? Sure enough, it won't be that easy to defeat him. If he's that easy to defeat, then he wouldn't be called Chu Kuangren. Let's be careful. The sages looked extremely solemn. At the same time, they felt that it was ridiculous. They were sages, after all. It was ridiculous for 6 sages to be so serious when they were fighting against someone who was not a sage. No one would believe it if word got out. Amidst the dust, Chu Kuangren rubbed his chest. TSK, a sage's attack really hurts. If not for my immortal body, I wouldn't even be able to stand up. He stared at the 6 sages in the sky. After all, he was only an honorable. Although he could fight against a sage with his strong foundation, it would still be difficult for him to fight against 6 sages at once. With my current strength, even a sage ruler technique like the human mountain stamp can only deal limited damage to a sage. Only an emperor technique can suppress these 6 shameless B***stards. The heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique can only be fully unleashed with the descendant self-sword. However, the presence of the prime magnet will affect my performance. Let's try the Tathagata rebirth mantra. Chu Kuangren murmured. As he spoke, he took a step forward. An incredibly majestic Buddhist will erupted, and 1,000,000 Buddhist rays shot into the sky, forming into a 1,000-foot-tall golden Buddha in the void. The Buddha unleashed a palm attack from afar, and Sanskrit chants filled the sky. It was a horrifying attack. The sages immediately joined forces to resist it. The sword chi and fist strength collided with the Buddha's palm, causing a huge shockwave to erupt. The sea of clouds around them tumbled, and the island beneath Chu Kuangren's feet trembled a few times. It looked like it was about to collapse. However, Chu Kuangren did not care. On the contrary, he stomped his feet on the ground and unleashed his human mountain strength, causing the entire island to tremble even more violently. The floating formation on the island was broken. Another island fell from the sky. D***MNU, Chu Kuangren. The 3rd prefect was so angry that his face twitched. He roared and channeled his spiritual power, which was mixed with sage Daoist rhyme, to form a giant white hand that charged towards the Buddha. However, Chu Kuangren did not retreat nor evade. Instead, he controlled the giant Buddha to retaliate. 2 large hands, one gold and one white, slammed into each other. The energy that had been released stirred up a storm in the first city. Countless buildings were destroyed and turned into ruins. The 3rd prefect retreated hundreds of feet after the giant white hand was shattered. Everyone, if you have any tricks up your sleeves, don't hide them anymore. Chu Kuangren is not an easy opponent, so let's give it our all, the 3rd prefect said loudly. All right. The Thunder Falcon tribe saint shouted. Dazzling lightning burst out from his body, and his eyes seemed to have turned into 2 glowing pearls, blooming with white light. Flaming Sun Thunder. With a loud roar, the Thunder Falcon tribe saint threw out a punch. A ferocious white thunderbolt wrapped in a white flame smashed towards the giant golden Buddha. Chu Kuangren felt a sense of threat from the lightning. Yang Flaming Thunder. Is it fused with the heavenly flames Yang Flaming Thunder? Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation and understood the abilities of the Thunder Falcon tribe sage. He also understood the nature of the dazzling sun lightning. He commanded the giant Buddha to unleash a palm attack. With a loud explosion, the ancient Buddha's palm trembled violently. Cracks began to appear on it under the attack of the dazzling sun lightning. Still not enough. Take my next move. Dragon Tiger Tempest. The Tempest Mountain Sage attacked with both his left and right hands. As if they had transformed into a pair of peerless divine swords, an incredibly powerful sword chi erupted. The sword chi intertwined and turned into a dragon and a tiger that charged forward. The domineering energy landed on the giant golden Buddha's body, and cracks began to appear on its surface. When the other sages saw that, they too joined in and unleashed their terrifying energies one after another. Under the attacks of 6 sages, even the Tathagata rebirth mantra could not withstand it. It turned into golden light spots and dissipated. The moment the giant Buddha was destroyed, the Buddhist light around Chu Kuangren's body dissipated, and in its place was a towering ferocious chi. It only took an instant for him to turn from a Buddha into a ferocious chi. Under this ferocious chi, the entire world trembled. Even the sages felt their hearts palpitate. This is the infallible tormented physique. One of the sages who had watched the battle with the Shang clan said solemnly. Then, the ferocious chi that filled the sky formed into a black figure behind Chu Kuangren. An earth-shattering battle roar was heard in the void, filled with an undefeatable and peerless battle intent that could send chills down one's spine. This is the divine ferocious avatar. The infallible tormented physique's divine power. No, it's not over yet. After Chu Kuangren had activated the infallible tormented physique, countless Daoist rhymes appeared on his body. Buddhist Tao, Sword Tao, Fist Tao, Spear Tao, 5 Ways Tao, Yin Yang Tao, those were the myriad of Daoist rhymes in this world. At that moment, Chu Kuangren seemed to have transformed into a Daoist ancestor. Countless Daoist rhymes merged within his body and formed an incredibly powerful transcendental energy that resonated with the infallible tormented physique. Exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, activate. The green lotus sword song, the 9 heaven sword prison, and the sword of the heavenly way, the 3 Taoist body visions that belonged to the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart were all activated. The 6 supreme foundation levels within Chu Kuangren's body unleashed an endless divine light as the golden jade body activated. Extremely pure spiritual power surged within his meridians and let out a roar that sounded like a tidal wave. Coupled with the power of the 3 supreme Daoist physiques, Chu Kuangren's aura was so powerful that he was like a supreme deity king. A majestic domineering aura swept across the entire first city. Every cultivator looked up at Chu Kuangren with an extremely shocked expression. Is this Chu Kuangren's true form? What a terrifying aura. How many Daoist physiques does he have? This is just too unbelievable. His body seems to contain an endless amount of Daoist rhymes. Could it be the transcendent coalescence Daoist physique that is ranked 3rd among the supreme Daoist physiques? Everyone was extremely shocked. Inside a restaurant, an old man in a plain robe looked at Chu Kuangren in the sky in amazement. For Daoist physiques, one of which is a pinnacle physique while the other 3 are supreme Daoist physiques. No wonder he's the biggest anomaly in history. What a freak. Facing Chu Kuangren in his peak form, the 6 sages had a solemn look on their faces. However, they were not too shocked. Back during the battle with the Shang clan, many sages were already aware that Chu Kuangren possessed 3 supreme Daoist physiques. Since they dared to fight Chu Kuangren, they had naturally expected such a situation. Everyone, let's give it our all. If we don't get rid of this person, I'm afraid that for the next 10,000 years, even our descendants will have to live under his shadow. 3rd forefather Linghu said solemnly. It was not wrong for a person to be outstanding, but it was a sin to be too outstanding. Chu Kuangren's excellence had already made the sages fearful and even fearful. They could not imagine how much Chu Kuangren would grow if he was given a few more years. When that time came, they would probably have to live under his shadow for the rest of their lives. Their descendants would not be able to see the light of day. That was right. Chu Kuangren's existence itself had become a sin. The sages could not tolerate it. That was the biggest sin in this world. Chapter 3:14. With the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, infallible tormented physique, and transcendent coalescence Daoist physique unleashed at the same time, Chu Kuangren's combat strength shocked the 6 sages at the scene. They had no choice but to stay alert. Slash. Chu Kuangren focused his sword finger and a giant sword shadow formed. The domineering sword chi was unleashed towards third forefather Linghu. The power of this attack caused his pupils to shrink slightly, and he used all his strength to slash out with his sword. However, under the power of this sword, he was still sent flying, and a huge wound appeared on his saint body. Don't you dare be so arrogant. The third prefect took a step forward and a surge of Daoist rhyme circulated around his body. Then, a white armor appeared on his body. It was a sage-level armor. The third prefect usually did not use it, but against a powerful opponent like Chu Kuangren, he had no choice but to use it. With the white armor covering his body, the third prefect charged towards Chu Kuangren and attacked him with one palm attack after another. Chu Kuangren unleashed a punch that was filled with ferocious chi and transcendental strength to form a giant fist that sent the third prefect flying. That punch could easily kill an ordinary sage. However, the third prefect was protected by the sage-level armor, so he was not hurt at all. I'll hold him back. You guys think of a way to kill him. The third prefect yelled and charged towards Chu Kuangren again. He was already a 7th-step sage, but with the help of the sage-level armor, his strength had surpassed the limits of an ordinary sage and was close to the level of a great sage. Chu Kuangren's divine ferocious avatar and the third prefect's Daoist rhyme collided, and the resulting shockwave destroyed another 2 islands. The third prefect was furious and anxious at the same time. He was furious because Chu Kuangren had already destroyed 5 of the 13 islands, and he was anxious because if he did not subdue Chu Kuangren soon, the first city might really be destroyed by him. Dazzling sun lightning. Dragon tiger tempest. 6 compounded palms. Brilliant heaven-shaking fist. Aside from third forefather Linghu who was sent flying by Chu Kuangren's attack, the other 4 sages took the opportunity while the third prefect was holding Chu Kuangren back to attack at the same time. All sorts of powerful sage techniques were unleashed towards Chu Kuangren. Under such a mighty force, Chu Kuangren's divine ferocious avatar trembled continuously, and his Daoist physique transformations also began to show signs of collapsing. However, Chu Kuangren was not afraid at all in this situation. Instead, the excitement in his eyes intensified. Come on. It's been a long time since I've fought to my heart's content. What other tricks do you have? Show them all at once. Perhaps Chu Kuangren was born with a thirst for battle. Otherwise, he would not have turned the entire firmament star upside down all these years. At this moment, he seemed to be at a disadvantage, but his fighting spirit did not decrease in the slightest. Instead, it grew fiercer as the battle went on. The infallible tormented body, which was born for battle, was being used to its fullest in this state. The heavenly ferocious Dharma form's murderous aura and battle intent became stronger and stronger. Coupled with the support of the Dharma power, the 5 sages could not suppress it even if they joined forces. Buzz! At this moment, a sword light suddenly tore through the void. The sword shadow pierced through the air towards Chu Kuangren. It went through the divine ferocious avatar and landed on Chu Kuangren's body. That's the Linghu clan's heart-slaying sword. It's the heart-piercing sword that specifically targets one's Daoist core. In the distance, third forefather Linghu, who was sent flying by the sword, looked at Chu Kuangren with a face full of joy. I did it. The heart-piercing sword was the Linghu family's ultimate technique. This sword was specifically targeted at one's Daoist core. If one's Daoist core was not strong enough, they would be affected by it and even fall into the realm of inner demons, unable to extricate themselves. The heart-piercing sword was also known as one of the most difficult sword techniques in Firmament Star. It was the Linghu family's most powerful technique. Do you think you can shake my Daoist core with that heart-piercing sword? At this moment, Chu Kuangren, who was hit by the heart-piercing sword, suddenly sneered. He was not affected at all. After all, he had the rock-steady Daoist core. Even the heart-piercing sword that third forefather Linghu wielded could not do anything to him. I'll kill you first. Due to the prime magnet's influence, Chu Kuangren did not use the descendant self-sword. Instead, he focused his sword fingers and released a sword chi. Although he did not have the descendant self-sword, the sword chi's power was enough to kill a sage. Third forefather Linghu, who was already heavily injured and had expended a large amount of spiritual power to activate the heart-piercing sword, could not defend himself against this attack. Save me! Third forefather Linghu screamed in fear. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang suddenly appeared in front of him, roared and unleashed a palm attack that had the power to destroy everything in its path. The palm chi and sword chi collided, and the violent shockwave sent both Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang and third forefather Linghu flying. Oh, I'm quite lucky. Chu Kuangren said calmly. He did not expect Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang to act so quickly, saving third forefather Linghu at such a critical moment. Is it that dark red mist? Chu Kuangren noticed that Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang's body was emitting wisps of dark red mist, and his aura was constantly rising. He activated his Eye of Revelation. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang, 7th step Sage Cultivation level. He's currently burning a drop of Sage Ruler blood essence, and his strength is continuously rising. The Eye of Revelation's feedback appeared in his vision. Sage Ruler blood essence. Chu Kuangren came to a sudden realization. At that moment, a similarly terrifying aura erupted not far away. Grey Grill Sage took out an entire bottle of medicinal pills and gulped them down. His overlord physique strength had increased by a level. Grey Grill Sage, 5th step Sage Cultivation level. He consumed some substance that can stimulate his overlord physique, and his strength is continuously rising. Looks like he's planning to fight me to the death. Chu Kuangren smirked. As Grey Grill Sage and Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang revealed their trump cards, the other sages followed suit. The Saint of Fengyun Mountain took out a sword. It was a wooden sword, but it contained a terrifying sword Daoist rhyme. The Thunder Falcon tribe sage used a secret technique to increase the strength of his flaming sun lightning by a level. As they revealed their trump cards, the sages once again charged towards Chu Kuangren, and this time, their attacks were even more terrifying. Slash! The Tempest Mountain Sage swung his wooden sword, and a grey-robed figure appeared in the void, slashing at Chu Kuangren. The Daoist rhyme contained in that sword attack had exceeded the limits of an ordinary sage, and the extremely violent sword chi landed on the Divine Ferocious Avatar. In the blink of an eye, the Divine Ferocious Avatar started to crack. Brilliant Heaven-shaking fist. 6 compounded palms. Grey Grill Sage and Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang attacked together. The fist and palm chi contained an incredibly majestic Daoist rhyme that instantly shattered the Divine Ferocious Avatar into countless wisps of black chi. Flaming Sun Lightning, Heaven-shattering strike. The Thunder Falcon tribe sage activated his lightning, and the white flaming lightning instantly landed on Chu Kuangren's body. The exquisite 9 orifices Sword Heart's 3 great Daoist physique transformations dissipated along with his injury. The third prefect also seized the opportunity to unleash a palm attack that sent Chu Kuangren flying. Bang bang bang, Chu Kuangren's body flew out like a cannonball, smashing through dozens of buildings before he landed on the ground, creating a huge crater where spider web-like cracks continued to spread. I guess we've succeeded this time. Grey Grill Sage looked at the crater and said. Even a great sage might not be able to withstand such an attack. No matter how strong Chu Kuangren was, he should be dead by now. The crowd thought to themselves. However, when the smoke and dust dissipated, the crowd could not help but narrow their eyes. They saw Chu Kuangren standing in the middle of the crater. The jade crown on his head had been shattered, and his black hair was scattered all over his shoulders, dancing in the wind. Other than that, there was not a single injury on his body. It was as if the sage's attacks had no effect on him at all. You guys have used all your strength and revealed all your trump cards, right? Now it's my turn to reveal my trump card. Chu Kuangren waved his sleeves, and a pitch-black guqin appeared in front of him. Everyone, let me play a song. Chapter 315. Everyone, let me play a song for you. Chu Kuangren said indifferently as he held the lingering song guqin in front of his chest. Everyone's eyes narrowed when they saw his posture. What? He's fine. D***, is this guy immortal? Guqin? Does he know Guqin Dao? Everyone was shocked that Chu Kuangren could remain unscathed under their attacks. At the same time, they were also puzzled that Chu Kuangren was an expert in Guqin Dao. Stop fooling around. Let's continue. The third prefect snorted. At that moment, Chu Kuangren's fingers plucked the guqin strings. With a pull and release, a sonorous guqin melody spread along with a vast surge of Daoist rhyme. At that instant, the third prefect and the others could not help but tremble. First movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, boundless expanse of heaven and earth. Chu Kuangren plucked the guqin strings with all 10 of his fingers, and a vast surge of Daoist rhyme combined with spiritual power turned into guqin music that reverberated between the heavens and earth. The third prefect could only feel a violent impact on his mind as if the heavens and earth were exerting a tremendous amount of pressure on him. Their Daoist rhymes were being suppressed by this guqin music. Compared to the boundless expanse of heaven and earth, their Daoist rhymes were not even worth mentioning. Everyone was shocked. It was their first time witnessing such a powerful guqin music Daoist rhyme. What a terrifying guqin music. I can't believe he has such a technique up his sleeve. This won't do. Under his guqin music, our surroundings seem to have turned into a domain. Our Daoist rhymes are being suppressed here. Hurry up and stop him. The sages wanted to attack. The guqin music changed its tune. Like a storm, the chaotic guqin music erupted with an even more terrifying Daoist rhyme. Second movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, Stormy Town. The guqin music transformed into a storm of wind blades and swords that rushed out. The sages' Daoist rhymes were already suppressed by the guqin music. Now that they were being attacked by the storm of wind blades, they were in a sorry state. D***. The third prefect relied on his sage armor to withstand the storm of wind blades and swords and charged towards Chu Kuangren. When he got closer, he gathered all of his spiritual power and formed a giant white hand that attacked, intending to stop Chu Kuangren's guqin music. Chu Kuangren then plucked a string and channeled his majestic spiritual power and Daoist rhymes into it. 8 celestial demonic chords, third movement, Great Reverie Chime. With a clang, the sound of a bowstring was heard. The sound was as loud as a bell and a majestic sound wave instantly erupted, turning into a terrifying impact that tore the white hand apart and smashed onto the third prefect's body. With a loud boom, the third prefect was sent flying by the terrifying sound wave even though he was protected by a sacred weapon. The tremendous recoil impacted his limbs, bones, and organs. Puff! The third prefect could not hold it in any longer and spat out a mouthful of blood. What terrifying music! Not far away, a white-haired old man's face was filled with shock. That old man was the sage of the Heaven Chord sect. The Heaven Chord sect was the orthodoxy that was most proficient in sound attacks, and this sage was a rare zither master. However, after witnessing Chu Kuangren's 8 celestial demonic chords, he felt that his guqin music paled in comparison. This kind of zither music was too terrifying. This was not the kind of music that should exist in the mortal realm. After sending the third prefect flying, Chu Kuangren's Guqi music changed again. Vaguely, the crowd could hear the sound of thousands of soldiers charging at them from all directions. It was as if they were in the middle of a celestial battlefield. 8 celestial demonic chords, ambush from 10 sides. Clang clang clang, the Guqi music reverberated between heaven and earth, and the sound of soldiers charging at them was endless. The terrifying Daoist rhymes crashed onto the sages like a tidal wave. Their minds and physical bodies were being tortured by the Guqi music. The Guqi music turned into sharp blades that wreaked havoc between heaven and earth. Third forefather Linghu, who was already heavily injured, could no longer withstand it and was beheaded on the spot. Even his sage spirit could not escape. Sages! The Linghu clan head roared in sorrow. The Linghu clan only had 2 sages, and the death of either one was a huge blow to them. 6 compounded palms. Dazzling sun lightning. The sages at the scene unleashed their attacks towards Chu Kuangren. However, their attacks were disintegrated by the Guqi music before they could even get close to Chu Kuangren's clone. Instead, it was the sages who were injured by the Guqi music's Daoist rhymes. Even their sage bodies would not last long. Chu Kuangren, stop right now. Let's talk this out. The sages hurriedly said. However, Chu Kuangren ignored them and continued to play the Guqi music. The rich Guqi music's Daoist rhyme spread with him as the center. The spiritual energy within a 1,000-kilometer radius was disturbed by the Guqi music, causing it to become restless. Countless cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat when they saw that. This is too terrifying. Just his Guqi music alone is enough to render the 6 sages helpless. This kind of ability is too terrifying. What kind of Guqi music is this? Among them, the Heaven Chord sect's cultivators were the most shocked. They were cultivators of the musical death Dao, so they could feel the terrifying power contained in Chu Kuangren's Guqi music more than the other cultivators. I'm afraid he didn't even use 1/10 of his strength in the Guqin duel that day on the street. Lady Snowflake said as she looked at Chu Kuangren with fear. Even the Heaven Chord sect's most advanced musical death technique was nothing compared to Chu Kuangren's 8 celestial demonic chords. Boom! At that moment, a terrifying Daoist rhyme suddenly erupted from a small floating island in the sky, and a palm energy swept across the sky. The palm energy was so powerful that it caused the void to rumble. And its target was Chu Kuangren. Oh, another sage. Chu Kuangren raised an eyebrow and plucked the strings of his Guqin. The celestial demonic third song, the melodious chime, was unleashed. The sound of the zither collided with the palm energy, and the energy that spread out was like a storm. Everything in the surroundings was destroyed as if it was withered. Even the few sages were sent flying. Chu Kuangren was also pushed back a few dozen meters. The sudden palm energy interrupted his Guqi music, and the sages breathed a sigh of relief. They felt like they had just survived a disaster. Everyone looked at the source of that palm energy. A person slowly walked out from that small island. It was a white-haired old man in a long white robe. With a single step, he traversed thousands of meters and arrived in front of the crowd. He stared at Chu Kuangren with a burning gaze. "Sir, what is your purpose in causing such a ruckus in the first city?" "To destroy all of you," Chu Kuangren said. The old man's expression darkened. "There's no such thing as hatred for no reason. Please speak frankly." "Oh, it seems like you don't know about this." Chu Kuangren looked at the old man in surprise. Then, he briefly explained how the first city had colluded with the Sky Emperor Palace to target the Black Heaven sect during the competition. The old man was stunned when he heard that. He looked at Chu Kuangren with a strange gaze. He wants to destroy the first city just because of a few disciples. Where did this lunatic come from? He glared at the third prefect who was not far away. "I entrusted the first city to you, but I didn't expect you to cause such a huge mess." "Humph, I'll settle this with you once this matter is over." It's my fault for not managing this place well and disturbing the city lord. This old man was the city lord of the first city. He was also the #1 prefect among the 13 prefects. He was initially in closed-door meditation, but Chu Kuangren had caused such a huge commotion that he had no choice but to come out early. Otherwise, the first city would have been destroyed by him. Chapter 316. Sect Leader Chu, the first city is indeed in the wrong. How about this? We can compensate the Black Heaven sect with 500 million top-tier soul stones. What do you think? The first prefect said. Everyone was shocked to hear that. 500 million top-tier soul stones was the first thing he said. The first city was really rich. Sure. Chu Kuangren nodded. Also, I hope you can arrange for a public apology as soon as possible. The first prefect pondered for a while before he said, Sect Leader Chu, 500 million top-tier soul stones is a huge sum for a sage orthodoxy. I hope you'll stop while you're ahead. What do you mean? Chu Kuangren's gaze turned cold. Sect Leader Chu, please don't mention the public apology anymore. 500 million soul stones is already the first city's biggest concession. The first prefect said. I understand. Chu Kuangren smiled. Everyone was stunned to hear that. Was Chu Kuangren planning to stop just like that? However, when they thought about it, 500 million soul stones was not a small sum. It was not impossible for Chu Kuangren to stop after receiving such a huge benefit. However, the sages did not feel relieved when Chu Kuangren stopped. Instead, they felt extremely frustrated. 6 of them could not suppress Chu Kuangren, and one of them was even killed by him. On the other hand, Chu Kuangren was not only unscathed, he even received 500 million soul stones as compensation. After this battle, the sages were completely humiliated. It's great that Sect Leader Chu can look at the bigger picture. The first prefect nodded. But then, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Chu Kuangren, who was opposite him, had his lingering melody guqin suspended in the air with all 10 fingers on its strings. He said, City Lord, please make your move. Hearing this, everyone sucked in a cold breath. Chu Kuangren had no intention of stopping at all. He was determined to fight to the death with the first city. Either a public apology and compensation, or the first city would be torn down. Other than that, he would not make any concessions. The first prefect's expression darkened when he saw how determined Chu Kuangren was. Sect Leader Chu, 500 million top-tier soul stones is a lot. Why do you have to fight to the death with us? Do you think my Black Heaven sect looks like we lack soul stones? Chu Kuangren said. What kind of joke was this? You want to let this matter go with only 500 million spirit stones? He had won a total of 5,700,000,000 spirit stones from 15 sage orthodoxies in just 2 bets, so why would he be short of 500 million spirit stones? It seems like we're destined to fight today, Sect Leader Chu, the first prefect said coldly. If you don't want to fight, then apologize. Humph, let's get this out of the way first. Fists and legs have no eyes. If anything happens to Sect Leader Chu, the first city will not be held responsible. The first prefect was also infuriated by Chu Kuangren. Heh, City Lord, you can give it a try. Chu Kuangren said. He was now at the 3rd stage of the immortal body, so even if he stood still, his opponent might not be able to kill him. Arrogant Junior, I'll show you that there's always someone better than you out there. The first prefect said coldly, and an extremely overbearing sage Daoist rhyme suddenly erupted from his body. This Daoist rhyme was much stronger than the other sages. Even Chu Kuangren was forced back a few feet. When the other sages saw this, their expressions changed. This aura is that of a great sage. The city lord of the first city is already a great sage. On the surface, there aren't many sage orthodoxies that have a great sage. The city lord of the first city has really hidden his strength well. Everyone was shocked, but Chu Kuangren was not afraid at all. When the first prefect first appeared, he had already observed his opponent's cultivation level. Since he dared to fight again, he must have something up his sleeves. He held his guqin in front of him and said, "The first 4 movements of the 8 celestial demonic chords have already rendered the 6 sages helpless. Do you dare to listen to the last 4 movements, City Lord? Please." The first prefect stood with his hands behind his back. Since things had come to this, he had no other way out. Clang! Guqin music filled the air. The boundless intent between the heavens and earth crashed towards the first prefect, and then countless guqin music transformed into sharp blades that swept out. Boom! A terrifying sound wave surged towards the first prefect. Boundless heavens and earth, wind and rain, resounding golden bell. The first 3 movements of the 8 celestial demonic chords were played one after another. The first prefect took a step forward and the great sage Daoist rhymes on his body circulated, forming an invisible barrier around him. The boundless intent could not affect him at all. When the guqin music transformed into sharp blades that struck the barrier, it only caused ripples to form on its surface. When the third movement, resounding golden bell, transformed into sound waves, the first prefect raised his hand and a terrifying surge of spiritual power erupted from the center of his palm. With a loud explosion, the void exploded, and the shockwaves swept across dozens of kilometers. Meanwhile, the first prefect stood where he was, unmoved. The other sages could not help but exclaim at that. A great sage is indeed a great sage. His strength is indeed powerful. Yeah, Chu Kuangren's guqin music has rendered us helpless, but it can't do anything to a great sage. Although there's only a difference of 1 word between a sage and a great sage, the difference in combat strength is like the difference between heaven and earth. No matter how strong Chu Kuangren is, how can he compare to a great sage? The Grey-Grill sage snorted coldly. However, Chu Kuangren, who was not far away, plucked the guqin strings with all 10 of his fingers. He did not seem to care that his attacks had no effect on the first prefect at all. Countless Daoist rhymes circulated around his body, and an incredibly mysterious transcendental strength was added to the guqin music Daoist rhymes. It was the transcendent coalescence Daoist physique. With the Daoist physique's support, Chu Kuangren's guqin music became even stronger. The sound of a powerful army suddenly rang out as if it had turned into an ancient battlefield. It was the celestial demonic 4th movement, ambush from 10 sides. The guqin music had the effect of distracting one's mind. The first prefect focused his mind and steadied his Daoist core before he dashed towards Chu Kuangren. He raised his hand and unleashed a majestic palm energy. However, Chu Kuangren's tune suddenly increased in intensity, and an unparalleled guqin music Daoist rhyme that seemed to carry 1,000 kilometers of mountains and rivers erupted. 5th movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, engulfing qi. The majestic guqin music erupted and shook the heavens and earth. The first prefect's palm energy was instantly shattered. The first prefect himself was forced back by the waves of guqin music. Its power was so powerful that his expression changed slightly. What a terrifying guqin music! The first prefect's expression turned serious as the spiritual power within his body surged and formed an extremely sturdy spiritual barrier around him. The barrier resisted the guqin music's attack. Then, the first prefect raised his palm to the sky and gathered the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth into his palm, forming a huge spiritual qi vortex that was hundreds of meters in diameter. Spiritual accumulation strike. The first prefect hurled out the spiritual qi vortex in his hand. The vortex contained a horrifying power that could destroy the world. Before the palm qi even reached him, Chu Kuangren could already feel an immense pressure. 6th movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, raging waves crashing shore. Chu Kuangren let out a low roar and guqin music filled the air. The void let out a tsunami-like sound, and under the guqin music, the void rumbled and trembled. The Guqin music and the palm chi collided with each other, and a terrifying explosion swept out with a terrifying shockwave. The clouds within a 1,000-kilometer radius tumbled and shattered, and even the sages could not help but take a few steps back. Pfft! At that moment, Chu Kuangren could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 317. Puff! Chu Kuangren could not help but vomit a mouthful of blood. The collision between the 8 cords of demons and gods and the great sage's attack had caused him to suffer some backlash. It was inevitable that he would be injured. In that instant, at least half of his 5 viscera and 6 bowels were injured. However, when he vomited blood, this small injury was healed by the immortal body, so he didn't panic at all. However, this was not the case in the eyes of others. Chu Kuangren, it's already an amazing feat for you to achieve this with your cultivation level. You should stop now, the first prefect said. In fact, he had thought of killing Chu Kuangren right here and now. But after weighing the pros and cons, he gave up on the idea. It was not that he was afraid of Chu Kuangren. It was because he did not have the confidence to kill Chu Kuangren. The strength of the young man in front of him shocked him. He even felt that if the young man wanted to leave, he wouldn't be able to stop him. Stop? How is this possible? Chu Kuangren, do you really want to die? Is it worth it to go this far just for a few disciples? The first prefect could not understand Chu Kuangren's obsession at all. Ha! What nonsense are you spouting? You make it sound like you can kill me. There are still 2 more pieces of the 8 celestial demonic cords. Do you still dare to listen to them? Chu Kuangren, don't be too stubborn. Do you dare or not? Chu Kuangren looked at him calmly. The first prefect was so angry that he was speechless. He felt like he was playing the lute to a cow. Why did this person in front of him not understand human language? Please. The first prefect took a deep breath and said. The 8 celestial demonic cords had a total of 8 tunes, but with his current cultivation level, he could only play the first 6 tunes. The last 2 songs were too difficult. But if it was a few days ago, he would have had no choice. But things were different now. 9 Deaths Blazing Blood Art, activate. A terrifying wave of energy erupted from Chu Kuangren's body, and waves of blood-colored flames suddenly appeared on the surface of his body. These flames were filled with an incredibly dense life essence. As the flames burned, Chu Kuangren's aura rose at an insane rate. When some of the saints saw the blood-colored flames, their faces immediately became somewhat bewildered. Could this be 9 Deaths Burning Blood Art? One of the sages gritted his teeth and said with a trembling voice. He looked at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. 9 Deaths Burning Blood Art. Upon hearing this name, all the sages turned pale with fright. This was because this technique was too famous among the sages. In the past, an ordinary sage had used this technique to kill a great sage, and it was clearly recorded in the ancient records. However, they were even more aware of the side effects of this technique. Burning one's blood essence in exchange for cultivation. This is no different from a suicidal cultivation technique. No matter how powerful it is, no one would dare to use it. Crazy, Chu Kuangren, you're AF * King Lunatic. A few sages could not help but exclaim in horror. At this moment, they could not help but feel a sense of fear in their hearts. They did not expect Chu Kuangren to do such a crazy thing just for the sake of justice. He even used a suicidal technique like the 9 Deaths Burning Blood Art. If they had known this would happen, they would not have dared to find trouble with Chu Kuangren even if they were beaten to death. Who knew if this guy would burn all of his blood essence and drag them down to hell with him? Most importantly, Chu Kuangren had the ability to do so. Before using the 9 Deaths Burning Blood Art, Chu Kuangren could already suppress 6 sages on his own. After using the 9 Deaths Burning Blood Art, even if a great sage tried to stop him, it would not be difficult for him to kill them. Even the first prefect was dumbfounded. Did he have to go this far just for a few disciples? Did he not even want to live anymore? Lunatic. This guy was definitely a lunatic. Are you ready, City Lord? Chu Kuangren said calmly. A hint of pain appeared in his eyes. Burning one's blood essence was definitely not a good thing. The intense pain was enough to make an ordinary person wail in pain. Although Chu Kuangren had the immortal body, which allowed him to recover his blood essence after it was burned, the pain was real. However, the pain was real. Chu Kuangren, why did you do this? Say no more. Chu Kuangren placed all 10 of his fingers on the guqin strings. The spiritual power within his body surged out. Before the guqin music could play, the Daoist rhyme of the 8 celestial demonic chords had already spread out. Sensing the extraordinary Daoist rhyme, the first prefect's expression became unprecedentedly serious. His great sage-level spiritual power and Daoist rhyme seeped out of his body, and he even took out a dark golden iron staff that was covered in runes. That was the first prefect's weapon. Ever since he became a great sage, he had rarely used a weapon. Even a 7th-step sage would not be able to force him to use a weapon. However, when faced with Chu Kuangren's guqin music that was about to play, he decisively took out the iron staff. Even so, he still felt a little uneasy. 7th movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords. Heavenly and earthly reverberation. With a soft yell, the guqin music suddenly erupted. Waves of guqin music that contained a majestic Daoist rhyme rushed out. At that moment, the wind and clouds surged, and the sun and moon lost their colors. Thunder rumbled in the sky, and the ground trembled violently. It was as if the heavens and the earth were accompanying the guqin music. Heavenly and earthly reverberation. The terrifying guqin music swept out wave after wave. Heavenly Emperor Sage Zhang, the 3rd prefect, and the other sages were instantly swept away. Just the aftermath of the guqin music alone was enough to injure them considerably. They looked at Chu Kuangren, who was playing the guqin, in horror. I can't believe he can play guqin music of this level. What a terrifying guqin Dao skill. Both the heavens and the earth were accompanying the guqin music. Both the heavens and the earth were accompanying the guqin music. The terrifying sound of the guqin struck the first prefect one wave after another, causing his face to turn pale for a moment. Then, he let out a long roar, and spiritual power surged as he waved the iron staff in his hand. Waves after waves of staff energy erupted and struck in all directions, clashing against Chu Kuangren's guqin music. The collision of the two peerless energies affected everything within a 1,000-mile radius. Every living being was shocked and terrified by the power. Boom, boom, boom. The guqin music and staff energy intertwined. In the end, Chu Kuangren spat out another mouthful of blood, and the first prefect was also blasted away by the guqin music, crashing into a mountain. When he rushed out, his hair was already disheveled, his face was pale, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. His entire person seemed to have aged a few times. A great sage is indeed a great sage. To be able to withstand my 7th movement. Then give my last movement a try, the great. Before Chu Kuangren could finish, the first prefect suddenly shouted, Chu Kuangren, I agree to your terms. The first prefect could not hold on any longer. The 7th movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords had already severely injured him. He could not even imagine if Chu Kuangren were to perform the 8th movement. Would he still be alive? Compared to his life, everything else seemed to be insignificant. Was it not just a public apology? Was it not enough for him to agree to it? From now on, he would never provoke this lunatic again. Did he not care about his life at all? He even dared to use a technique like the 9 deaths blazing blood art so casually. Oh, you should have done this earlier. Chu Kuangren was stunned for a moment before he chuckled. The blood-colored flames on his body gradually dissipated as he deactivated the 9 deaths blazing blood art. you're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.